They invited his ex-wife to humiliate her at his wedding. She walked in with triplets and destroyed everything. The Caldwell family thought they'd planned the perfect revenge, forced the woman Nathan abandoned to watch him marry into power. They assigned her a seat by the kitchen like garbage. What they didn't know was that Evelyn Moore wasn't broken anymore. And she wasn't alone. When she walked through those mansion doors with three identical 4-year-old boys who looked exactly like the groom, the entire wedding collapsed before the vows were even spoken. Stay until the end to see how she crushed them. Like this video, comment what city you're watching from, and let's see how far this story travels. The invitation arrived on cheap cardstock, deliberately insulting in its plainness. Evelyn Moore held it between two fingers like something contaminated, standing in the marble foyer of her downtown penthouse as late afternoon sun sliced through floor-to-ceiling windows. The paper felt rough, mass-produced, nothing like the embossed linen reserved for actual guests. Even the envelope had been hand-addressed in what was obviously a junior assistant's hasty scrawl. "Mr. Nathan Caldwell requests the honor of your presence." She almost laughed. Honor. As if there was anything honorable about this. Behind her, 3 identical boys crashed toy cars across the hardwood floor, their laughter echoing off vaulted ceilings. 4 years old, wild-haired, and completely unaware that the man who'd contributed half their DNA was about to marry a senator's daughter in the most talked-about society wedding of the season. "Mama, can we have snacks?" The smallest, by exactly 3 minutes, looked up at her with eyes that were unfortunately devastatingly Nathan's. Same unusual amber color, same thick lashes, same sharp intelligence that could cut or charm depending on his mood. "In a minute, Oliver." She kept her voice steady, but her hand tightened on the invitation. They'd sent it to her old address, the cramped apartment where she'd lived during the divorce, scraping by on paralegal wages while Nathan's family buried her in legal fees. Someone had forwarded it, probably thinking they were being helpful. But Evelyn knew better. This wasn't an invitation. It was a summons to her own public execution. She'd known the Caldwell family for 7 years, married to their golden son for 3 of them before everything imploded. She knew how they operated. Charity galas weren't about charity. They were about being photographed with the right people. Business dinners weren't about business. They were about reminding everyone who had power and who didn't. And weddings? Weddings were about legacy, bloodline, making sure everyone knew their place in the hierarchy. Inviting the discarded first wife wasn't kindness, it was strategy. They wanted her there to show the world what happened to people who didn't belong in their circle. To parade her past their new connections like proof that Nathan had upgraded. To make absolutely certain that every society columnist and Instagram influencer saw the before and after, the struggling nobody versus the senator's polished daughter. Evelyn could picture it perfectly. They'd seat her somewhere humiliating. Far from the main ceremony, probably near the catering entrance, close enough that Nathan would see her, that his mother Gloria would see her, that every guest would notice the pathetic ex-wife watching her replacement say, "I do." They'd whisper, point, pity her maybe, in that condescending way wealthy people pitied those they'd crushed. And Nathan would stand at that altar, hand in hand with Victoria Ashford, feeling vindicated, feeling like he'd won, because that's what the Caldwells did. They won. Always. The invitation trembled slightly in her hand. "Mama?" Oliver's voice came again, uncertain now. She looked down at her sons, at Oliver, at Miles, at Sebastian, and felt something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. These boys had Nathan's eyes, Nathan's stubborn chin, Nathan's quick mind. But they had her determination, her survival instinct, her absolute refusal to be erased. The Caldwells didn't know these children existed. When Evelyn discovered she was pregnant 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, she'd been living in a studio apartment with a leaking ceiling, working 16-hour days to pay off the debts Nathan's lawyers had deliberately saddled her with. Triplets. The ultrasound technician had said it 3 times before Evelyn actually processed it. She'd sat in her car in the clinic parking lot for 2 hours, trying to breathe. Calling Nathan was never an option. The man who'd stood in their apartment and told her she was holding him back while his mother nodded approvingly in the doorway. The man who'd let his family's lawyers destroy her credit, her reputation, her sense of self-worth, that Nathan didn't deserve to know. But more than that, she couldn't risk it. Because if the Caldwells knew about the triplets, they'd take them. Maybe not physically, not at first, but they'd drown her in legal motions, custody battles, allegations of unfitness. They'd use their money and connections to paint her as unstable, vindictive, a gold digger trying to trap their son. They'd make her prove over and over that she was worthy of raising children who shared the precious Caldwell blood. And eventually, they'd win. Because they always won. So Evelyn had made a choice. She'd disappeared, changed her phone number, moved across the city, used her middle name on social media, kept her pregnancy quiet even from most friends. When the boys were born, 8 weeks early, terrifyingly tiny, she'd stood alone in the NICU and made them a promise. No one will ever use you. No one will ever make you feel less than whole. I will burn the world down before I let them touch you. That was 4 years ago. 4 years of building herself back up from nothing, of working those paralegal jobs during the day and teaching herself business law at night while the boys slept, of recognizing that the legal system she'd been working in was broken and that she could fix it better than the people currently running it. She'd started small, a consulting service helping people navigate contract disputes without expensive lawyers, then expanded into a software platform that automated legal document review, then into a full-service firm that undercut traditional law practices by 60% while delivering better results. More legal solutions had gone from a kitchen table operation to a multi-million-dollar company in 38 months. Evelyn was now the CEO of a firm with 200 employees, offices in 4 cities, and a client list that included 3 Fortune 500 companies. She had wealth that would make Gloria Caldwell's vintage jewelry collection look like costume pieces. She had power that came from building something real, not inheriting it. And the Caldwells had no idea, because she'd been careful, used her maiden name professionally, kept her personal life completely separate from her business presence, made sure that when reporters asked about her background, the story was self-made entrepreneur overcomes adversity, not ex-wife of Nathan Caldwell builds empire. She'd stayed off their radar deliberately. Until now. "Boys," she said softly. "Come here." They scrambled over, Miles knocking into Sebastian, Oliver trying to climb up her legs. She knelt down so she was at their eye level, smoothing wild hair, wiping juice-sticky hands on her already ruined silk blouse. "How would you like to get very dressed up and go to a fancy party?" Sebastian's eyes went wide. "With cake?" "Probably very expensive cake," Evelyn confirmed. "Will there be other kids?" Miles asked skeptically. He was the cautious one, always analyzing. "Maybe a few, but mostly grown-ups." Oliver studied her face with unnerving intensity. "Are you sad, Mama?" She wasn't sad. She was furious. But fury was useful if you controlled it, if you shaped it into something purposeful. "No, baby, I'm ready." Ready to walk into the Caldwell estate for the first time in 4 years. Ready to sit in whatever humiliating seat they'd assigned her. Ready to smile politely while they sneered. And ready to bring 3 tiny, perfect, undeniable truths that would detonate everything. The Caldwell estate sat on 47 acres in Connecticut's most exclusive enclave, where properties didn't have addresses so much as names. Whitmore House, the Ashford Grounds, Caldwell Manor. Nathan had grown up here in a Georgian mansion with 12 bedrooms, a ballroom, and a reflecting pool that required a full-time maintenance staff. Evelyn had visited exactly 4 times during their marriage, always feeling like an anthropologist studying a foreign culture, never quite speaking the language correctly. Gloria Caldwell had made sure of that. Nathan's mother was a woman who'd perfected the art of the subtle insult. She'd compliment Evelyn's dress while somehow making it clear it was hopelessly provincial. She'd ask about Evelyn's family with such polite interest that it highlighted exactly how unremarkable they were. She'd correct Evelyn's pronunciation of French wines, her table posture, her laugh that was apparently too loud for refined company. And Nathan had let it happen. Had stood there in his tailored suits, sipping his single malt scotch, and said nothing while his mother slowly, methodically, made Evelyn understand that she would never be good enough. The marriage had lasted 3 years. The breaking point came when Evelyn suggested they move to a place of their own, somewhere they could build a life that wasn't constantly supervised by Gloria. Nathan had looked at her like she'd suggested burning down an orphanage. "This is my family, Evelyn. This is who I am. If you can't understand that, maybe we're not compatible. 3 weeks later, divorce papers arrived. Gloria had already hired the lawyers. Now, pulling up to the estate's wrought iron gates in her Mercedes SUV, purchased with her own money, titled in her own name, Evelyn felt a dark satisfaction watching the security guard's face change when he scanned her invitation. She'd RSVP'd. Of course she had. The guard spoke into his radio, listened, then waved her through with obvious confusion. They weren't expecting her to actually come. That was their first mistake. The circular driveway was already packed with luxury vehicles, Bentleys, Teslas, a vintage Rolls-Royce that probably belonged to Victoria's grandmother. Valets in crisp uniforms darted between cars. Evelyn pulled to the main entrance and waited. In the back seat, 3 boys in identical navy suits stared out the windows with enormous eyes. "Mama, this house is giant," Sebastian breathed. "It's not a house, it's a castle," Oliver corrected. Miles said nothing, but his hand found Evelyn's when she opened the door. She'd dressed them carefully. Custom suits that fit perfectly. None of that oversized room-to-grow nonsense. Hair combed but not overly styled. They looked exactly like what they were. Well-cared-for children from a good family. Nothing that screamed wealth, but nothing that suggested struggle either. And she dressed herself in armor. A tailored dress in deep emerald, expensive but understated. Minimal jewelry. Hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She looked successful, composed, untouchable. Not the broken woman they remembered. A valet approached, then stopped short when he saw the boys tumbling out of the back seat. "I'll be keeping the car close," Evelyn said coolly. "We may not be staying long." Inside, the mansion had been transformed into a wedding fantasy. White roses everywhere, thousands of them, probably flown in from somewhere absurd. String quartet playing near the grand staircase. Ice sculptures that were already beginning to weep in the late spring heat. Guests mingled in clusters, air-kissing and laughing, with that particular sound wealthy people make when they're being seen. Evelyn recognized several faces from society pages. A tech CEO, 2 Broadway producers, someone who was definitely a senator, but she couldn't remember which one. And there, near the ballroom entrance, holding court like the queen she believed herself to be, Gloria Caldwell. She spotted Evelyn immediately. The older woman's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, disdain, and finally, vicious pleasure. She excused herself from her conversation and glided over with predatory grace. Gloria was 63 but looked 50, maintained through expensive procedures and religious yoga. She wore champagne-colored silk that probably cost more than Evelyn's first car. "Evelyn?" Her voice could have frosted glass. "How unexpected. I wasn't certain you'd accept our invitation." "I wouldn't have missed it," Evelyn replied evenly. Gloria's eyes dropped to the boys who'd pressed against Evelyn's leg, suddenly shy. Her expression flickered, irritation that Evelyn had brought children to an adult event. "And you brought—" She paused delicately. "Guests?" "My sons." The word hung there. Gloria's smile tightened fractionally. "How lovely. Though I'm not sure we have appropriate seating arrangements for children. The ceremony is quite formal." Translation: "You and your kids don't belong here." "We'll manage," Evelyn said. A wedding coordinator appeared at Gloria's elbow, tablet in hand. "Mrs. Caldwell, we need you for photos." Gloria's smile sharpened into something cutting. "Of course. Evelyn, your seat is in the east wing. Someone will show you." She gestured vaguely toward the back of the house, nowhere near the main ballroom. Then she swept away, trailing perfume and contempt. The coordinator, a harried woman in her 30s, gave Evelyn an apologetic look. "If you'll follow me." They wound through hallways Evelyn remembered from her marriage, past the library where Nathan's father used to conduct business, past the conservatory where Gloria hosted her book club, past rooms full of family portraits spanning generations of Caldwells, all looking vaguely disappointed in the present. The east wing was where the service entrance connected to the main house. The coordinator led them to a small auxiliary room that had been set up with folding chairs. Through a partially open door, Evelyn could just barely see into the main ballroom where the ceremony would take place. "You'll have a view from here," the coordinator said weakly. She was young enough to look embarrassed about this assignment. Young enough that she probably didn't know the whole story, just that this guest was supposed to be seated far away and kept quiet. Evelyn looked at the folding chairs, at the view through a doorway like watching through a keyhole, at the clear message, "You're allowed to watch, but you're not really here." Oliver tugged her hand. "Mama, I don't like this room." Neither did she. "We're not staying here," Evelyn said. The coordinator blinked. "I'm sorry?" "We'll sit in the main ballroom, front row, ideally." That's family seating. I don't think, Then I suggest you check with Mrs. Caldwell," Evelyn said calmly, "because we're not sitting in the service wing like we're here to clear plates." She turned and walked back toward the main house, 3 boys trailing behind her, the coordinator stammering into her headset. This was the moment, the point of no return. Evelyn could still leave, could take her boys and drive away, dignity intact, having proved to herself that she'd survived, that she'd risen above. But survival wasn't enough anymore. She wanted them to see what they'd thrown away, wanted Nathan to understand the magnitude of his mistake, wanted Gloria to feel, just once, what it was like to lose control. The main ballroom was filling with guests, a sea of designer gowns and expensive suits. Rows of white chairs faced an altar drowning in roses. The front rows were marked with small reserved signs. Caldwell family on one side, Ashford family on the other. Evelyn walked straight down the center aisle. Heads turned. Whispers started immediately, the kind of subtle, vicious gossip that traveled through crowds like wildfire. "Is that? I thought she wasn't invited. Who are those children?" She could feel eyes on her back, feel the weight of judgment and curiosity. The boys stayed close, sensing the tension even if they didn't understand it. When she reached the front row, the Caldwell side, she calmly removed the reserved sign and sat down. Sebastian climbed into the chair beside her. "Mama, people are staring." "Let them," she murmured. It took exactly 45 seconds for security to arrive. 2 men in dark suits trying to be discreet but failing. The taller one leaned down, speaking quietly. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to move to your assigned seat." "This is my seat," Evelyn said. "Ma'am, is there a problem?" A new voice, sharp and cold. Gloria had materialized like a vengeful spirit, fury radiating beneath her practiced smile. This close, Evelyn could see the surgical precision of her face, the Botox smoothness that didn't quite match the anger in her eyes. "Mrs. Caldwell," the security guard said with obvious relief. "This guest is refusing to move to her assigned area." Gloria's smile could have cut diamond. "Evelyn, you're making a scene." "I'm sitting down. In family seating." "Yes." The word hung there, simple and devastating. Gloria's eyes narrowed. Around them, guests were definitely watching now, phones probably already filming. This was exactly the kind of drama that would be all over social media in minutes. Ex-wife crashes society wedding, refuses to leave. "I don't know what you think you're doing," Gloria said, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "But this is my son's wedding. You have no right to be here, and you certainly have no right to bring your children to disrupt. Are you really throwing your own grandsons out of their father's wedding?" Evelyn's voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. The silence that followed was absolute. Gloria froze. The security guards froze. Every guest within earshot stopped mid-conversation. Evelyn stood slowly, keeping her hand on Miles's shoulder. "These are Nathan's sons, triplets, born 4 years ago, and before you call me a liar," she could see the accusation forming on Gloria's lips, "I suggest you take a very close look at them." Oliver chose that exact moment to look up at Gloria with those unmistakable amber eyes. The same eyes currently staring out from a portrait of Nathan's grandfather in the east hallway. The same eyes Gloria saw every morning in her own mirror. The color drained from the older woman's face. "That's impossible," she whispered. "DNA testing is very accurate these days," Evelyn said. "But if you'd like to do this the hard way, we can. Right here, right now, in front of all your guests and their phones." She could see the calculation happening behind Gloria's eyes. The math of scandal versus control. The risk assessment of public humiliation versus private verification. You're lying, Gloria said, but her voice wavered. Then prove it. Call Nathan down here. Let him look at his sons and tell me I'm lying. For a long moment, Gloria stood frozen. A woman who'd spent 6 decades controlling every situation suddenly confronted with something completely outside her playbook. Then she turned to the security guards. Get Nathan, now! The ballroom had gone silent, 200 guests pretending not to watch while recording every second. The string quartet had stopped playing. Even the caterers had paused in the doorways. Evelyn sat back down, heart hammering, but face serene. The boys sensed the tension pressing close. Did I do something wrong? Oliver whispered. No, baby. You did everything right. Footsteps on marble. Nathan appeared in the doorway, still in his getting-ready clothes, expensive slacks and a half-buttoned shirt. He looked confused, annoyed at being summoned. Then he saw Evelyn. His face went through the same progression Gloria's had: confusion, recognition, anger. But when he started forward, probably to demand she leave, his eyes landed on the boys. He stopped walking. Just stopped, mid-stride, like someone had hit pause. Evelyn watched him stare at 3 small faces that were mirror images of his own childhood photos. Watched the denial, the dawning horror, the terrible mathematics of dates and possibilities. Nathan, Gloria's voice cracked slightly. Tell me this is some kind of joke. But Nathan couldn't speak. He was staring at Sebastian, who'd inherited not just his eyes, but his exact expression when concentrating. At Miles, who had his nose and chin. At Oliver, who had his smile. Something Nathan rarely showed, but that Evelyn remembered from their early days together. 4 years old, Evelyn said quietly. Born 8 weeks premature. Conceived during our marriage, if you need to do the math. You, Nathan's voice came out hoarse. You never told me. You never asked. You were too busy trading me in for an upgrade. His face flushed. That's not... I didn't... Ma'am? One of the security guards looked desperately between Gloria and Nathan. What should we do? Gloria had recovered slightly, her face hardening into the imperious mask Evelyn remembered. This is clearly some kind of scheme. Evelyn always was manipulative. There's a very simple way to settle this, Evelyn interrupted. Dr. Richard Thorne is among your guests. I saw him in the West Garden. He's one of the country's leading genetic specialists. We could ask his professional opinion. She'd done her homework. Knew exactly who was invited. Knew that Dr. Thorne had published extensively on hereditary traits and facial recognition. Gloria's mouth thinned. That won't be necessary. Then you're admitting they're Nathan's sons. I'm admitting nothing. This is a private matter that should be handled privately? Evelyn's voice finally rose, just slightly. Like you handled our divorce privately? Like you privately destroyed my credit and reputation? Like you privately made sure I couldn't get work anywhere in your social circle? Nathan flinched. Evelyn, he said, and his voice was different now, smaller. Can we talk about this somewhere else? Why? Because you're embarrassed. She looked around at the frozen guests, the phones definitely recording now. Because 200 people are watching you realize you have 3 sons you never knew about, that you abandoned before they were even born? I didn't abandon them. I didn't know. And whose fault is that? The question hung there unanswerable. Sebastian tugged on Evelyn's dress. Mama, is that man our daddy? The entire ballroom heard it. Nathan made a sound like he'd been punched. Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Nathan, what's going on? Victoria Ashford appeared in her pre-ceremony dress, some kind of designer wrap that probably cost 6 figures. She was beautiful in the way society women were beautiful. Perfect hair, perfect skin, perfect teeth, perfect breeding. She looked at Evelyn, at the boys, at Nathan's devastated expression. Who are they? She asked. No one answered. Victoria's eyes narrowed. She was 26, daughter of a senator, educated at Yale. Not stupid. Evelyn watched her do the math, watched understanding dawn. Oh my God, Victoria breathed. Nathan? Victoria, I can explain. Explain what? That you have children? 3 children? I didn't know, he repeated helplessly. You didn't know you had 3 sons? She never told me. Victoria's perfectly made-up eyes swung to Evelyn. The look was pure venom, the rage of a woman watching her perfect day implode. What do you want? Victoria demanded. Money? Is this some kind of blackmail? Evelyn almost laughed. I have my own money, quite a lot of it, actually. Then why are you here? Because I was invited. The simplicity of it seemed to break something. Victoria turned to Gloria, voice rising. You invited his ex-wife to our wedding? Gloria's composure finally cracked. It wasn't supposed to. She wasn't supposed to. But she couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't admit that the whole point was to humiliate Evelyn, and instead it had detonated in their faces. The wedding coordinator appeared again, looking like she might cry. Mrs. Caldwell, we need to start the ceremony. Guests are getting restless. Delay it, Gloria snapped. For how long? I don't know. Just delay it. More guests were filing in now, sensing drama. Evelyn recognized several people from her marriage days. Nathan's college friends, Gloria's bridge club, various business associates who'd pretended she didn't exist after the divorce. They were all staring at the boys, at 3 undeniable, unmistakable Caldwell children sitting in the front row. I need a drink, Victoria said suddenly. Nathan, I can't. She turned and fled toward the house, designer wrap billowing behind her. Nathan started after her, then stopped, looked back at the boys, at Evelyn, at his mother. How could you not tell me? He said, and now his voice was raw. 4 years. 4 years, Evelyn. How could I tell you? She countered. The man who divorced me because I wasn't good enough? Whose mother called me trailer trash? Who let his lawyers bury me in debt? You think I trusted you with my children? They're my children too. You didn't earn that right. The words hit like a slap. Nathan recoiled, face flushing dark red. You had no right to keep them from me. That's parental alienation. That's protecting my sons from a family that destroys people who don't meet their standards. Gloria drew herself up. How dare you? How dare I? Evelyn turned on her, and 4 years of suppressed rage finally broke through. How dare you invite me here to humiliate me? How dare you think you could parade me past your friends like proof that your son upgraded? How dare you spend years making me feel worthless and then act surprised when I didn't come crawling back? Her voice echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Guests had given up all pretense of polite ignorance and were openly staring now. You wanted me here, Evelyn continued, voice shaking with controlled fury. You wanted me to see Nathan marry someone better, someone worthy of the Caldwell name, someone whose family had the right connections, the right education, the right everything that I was never good enough to provide. This is inappropriate, Gloria said coldly. This is truth. You want inappropriate? Let's talk about how your lawyers tried to prove I was an unfit wife because I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. Let's talk about how you blocked me from jobs because you made calls to your friends telling them I was unstable. Let's talk about how you made absolutely sure that when your son threw me away, I'd have nothing. That's defamation. That's fact, and I can prove it. Evelyn's voice was steel now. I have emails, recorded calls, documentation of every single thing you did to destroy me. I've spent 4 years building a case I hoped I'd never have to use. Gloria's face paled slightly. But you couldn't leave well enough alone, Evelyn continued. You had to invite me here, had to try one more time to put me in my place. Except, I'm not in that place anymore. I'm the CEO of a company worth more than your husband's entire portfolio. I have lawyers who make your legal team look like kindergartners, and I have 3 sons who are Caldwells, whether you like it or not. DNA test, Gloria said suddenly. I want a DNA test. Done. Evelyn pulled out her phone, opened a file, turned it toward Gloria. Certified results from 3 separate labs. 99.99% certainty. Nathan Caldwell is the biological father. She'd been prepared for this, had known they'd demand proof. Gloria stared at the documents, face unreadable. Nathan moved closer, looking at the screen over his mother's shoulder. Evelyn watched his expression change as he read, denial crumbling into unavoidable truth. When? He whispered. When did you find out? 3 weeks after our divorce was finalized. And you just decided I didn't deserve to know? I decided my children deserved better than being weapons in your family's power games. They're my sons! Then act like it, Evelyn's voice cracked. Stop thinking about your rights and start thinking about them. Because right now you're standing at your wedding to another woman arguing about children you've never met. What exactly is the plan here, Nathan? Walk down the aisle anyway? Pretend this didn't happen? He had no answer. Behind them, Evelyn heard whispers growing louder. Someone was definitely streaming this. By tonight, it would be on every social media platform, every gossip site, every news outlet that covered society weddings. Caldwell heir discovers secret triplets at his own wedding. Ex-wife crashes ceremony with bombshell revelation. Society wedding implodes when groom's sons appear. Gloria understood this too. Evelyn could see the calculation in her eyes, the desperate attempt to contain a scandal that was already metastasizing beyond control. "Everyone out," Gloria said suddenly, voice sharp with command. "Clear the ballroom, now." The wedding coordinator started to move, but Evelyn spoke first. "No." Gloria's head snapped toward her. "Excuse me? You wanted me here as a guest. I'm staying as a guest. Whether the wedding happens or not is entirely up to Nathan and Victoria. You don't give orders in my house. This stopped being about your house the moment you tried to weaponize a wedding invitation." Evelyn's voice was ice. "You played a game you didn't understand. You thought I was still the scared girl you could intimidate. You were wrong." "How much?" Gloria asked abruptly. "How much money do you want to leave quietly?" Evelyn smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I'm worth $40 million, Gloria. Your money means nothing to me. What I want is for you to understand, finally, completely, that you don't own everyone, that actions have consequences, that the people you destroy sometimes come back stronger than you." Oliver tugged her sleeve. "Mama, you said we could have cake." The innocence of it, the pure, unaware interruption, broke through the tension like a needle popping a balloon. Evelyn looked down at her son, at three boys who'd been dragged into a drama they were too young to understand. They should be playing with blocks, watching cartoons, not sitting in the front row of their father's wedding, watching adults fall apart. She'd wanted justice, wanted vindication, wanted the Caldwells to hurt the way they'd hurt her. But looking at Sebastian's confused face, at Miles's worried eyes, at Oliver's simple trust that his mother would protect him, she realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about making sure her sons never felt the way she'd felt, never believed they were worthless, never let anyone make them small. "You're right," Evelyn said quietly. "We'll get cake. Somewhere better than this." She stood, gathering her purse, taking Miles's hand, smoothing Sebastian's collar. Nathan found his voice. "Wait, you can't leave. We need to talk about custody, about—" "We will," Evelyn said. "Through lawyers. Mine are better than yours, and they're actually ethical. We'll work out a custody arrangement that prioritizes what's best for the boys. Not what's best for the Caldwell name. Not what makes you look good. What's actually best for 3 4-year-olds who didn't ask for any of this." "When?" Nathan demanded. "When Victoria decides whether she's still marrying you. Because that seems like something you should probably figure out first." She turned and walked down the aisle, 3 boys following, leaving Nathan standing at the altar alone. The guests parted like a sea. At the ballroom entrance, Evelyn paused and looked back. At Gloria, white-faced and trembling. At Nathan, looking lost in his half-buttoned shirt. At the roses and ice sculptures and string quartet and all the expensive theater that was supposed to showcase power. "Enjoy your wedding," she said, "if you still have one." Then she walked out into the late afternoon sunshine where her car was waiting and drove away from Caldwell Manor with her son safely beside her. Behind her, she could hear shouting, crying, the unmistakable sound of a perfect plan falling apart. She smiled. The text started within the hour. "Nathan, we need to talk, please." "Nathan, I have rights, legal rights." "Nathan, you can't keep them from me." "Nathan, my lawyers say—" Evelyn blocked the number and contacted her own legal team instead. By evening, a formal custody negotiation request had been filed, along with a restraining order preventing any Caldwell family member from contacting her or the boys until proper legal channels were established. She'd also filed a motion to prevent Gloria from having unsupervised access to the children pending psychological evaluation. The gloves were off now. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News alerts, social media mentions, reporters requesting comment. Someone had leaked photos from the wedding. Evelyn and the boys in the front row, Nathan's stunned face, Victoria fleeing. The headlines were brutal. Society wedding canceled as groom's secret children appear. Senator's daughter calls off ceremony after shocking revelation. Those are his sons. Ex-wife crashes. Wedding with triplets. Evelyn turned off her phone and focused on her boys instead. They were eating ice cream in her penthouse kitchen, legs swinging from high stools, completely unaware that they'd just become the center of a national scandal. "Mama?" Sebastian asked around a mouthful of chocolate. "Why was that lady so mad?" "Grown-up problems," Evelyn said gently. "Nothing for you to worry about." "Is that man really our daddy?" Oliver persisted. Evelyn met his amber eyes, Nathan's eyes, and chose her words carefully. "Yes, but being a daddy is about more than biology. It's about being there, taking care of someone, loving them. We'll see if he can learn how to do that." Miles, the cautious one, asked the hardest question. "Do we have to see him if we don't want to?" Evelyn's heart cracked slightly. "No, baby. No one will ever make you do anything that scares you." She'd protect them from this. From the scandal, the media attention, the toxic Caldwell family dynamics. She'd built an empire from nothing. Protecting 3 small boys would be easier than that. Or so she thought. The knock came at 9 p.m. Evelyn checked the security camera and her stomach dropped. Victoria Ashford stood in the hallway, makeup smeared, expensive dress wrinkled. She looked directly at the camera. "Please," she said, "I just want to talk." Evelyn stood frozen in her living room, staring at the security monitor. Victoria Ashford's face filled the screen, mascara tracking down her cheeks, hair falling out of its intricate updo. The woman who was supposed to be celebrating her wedding night instead standing in a corporate building hallway, looking utterly destroyed. "Please," Victoria said again to the camera, "I know I have no right to ask, but I need to understand what happened today." Every instinct told Evelyn to ignore her, to let building security handle it, to protect her peace and her children from any more Caldwell family drama. But there was something in Victoria's voice that wasn't anger or entitlement. It was devastation. Raw and real. Evelyn pressed the intercom button. "Are you alone?" "Yes." "No recording devices? No phones?" Victoria held up her hands, empty except for a small clutch purse. "Nothing. I swear." Against her better judgment, Evelyn buzzed her up. The boys were already in bed, thankfully. She'd read them 3 stories and sung lullabies until their eyes drooped closed, their small bodies starfished across their matching beds. They'd asked no more questions about the man who was their father, content with ice cream and the safety of their normal routine. Evelyn met Victoria at the elevator wearing jeans and a simple sweater, a deliberate contrast to the designer armor she'd worn to the wedding. She wanted this woman to see her as she actually was, not as the threat Gloria had painted her to be. Victoria stepped out, and up close, she looked even worse. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She'd removed most of her jewelry but missed one earring. The expensive wrap dress had a stain on the hem. "Thank you for seeing me," Victoria said quietly. Evelyn led her to the living room but didn't offer a seat. Didn't offer comfort, just waited. Victoria looked around the penthouse, at the artwork on the walls, the designer furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Her expression shifted, realizing this wasn't the home of someone struggling or desperate. "I didn't know," Victoria said finally. "About you. About any of it. What did Nathan tell you about his previous marriage? That it didn't work out. That you wanted different things, that it ended amicably." Victoria's laugh was bitter. "He said you'd moved on, found someone else. That there were no hard feelings." Of course he had. Nathan had always been good at rewriting history to make himself the hero. "Did he mention how it ended?" Evelyn asked. "Mutual decision," he said. "You both realized you weren't compatible. His mother called me trash, his lawyers buried me in debt, and Nathan stood by and let it happen because I wasn't good enough for the Caldwell name." Evelyn's voice was flat, factual. When I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after our divorce was finalized, I knew exactly what they'd do. They'd take my children and make me prove over and over that I was worthy of raising them. So I disappeared. Victoria sank onto the couch without asking permission. 3 weeks after the divorce, you found out you were carrying triplets? Yes. And you never told him. I chose my children over his right to know. I'd make the same choice again. Victoria stared at her hands. The wedding's off. Obviously. I left Nathan standing in the ballroom. His mother was screaming at him. His father was on the phone with lawyers. It was chaos. I'm sorry, Evelyn said, and meant it. Victoria was collateral damage in a war that had started long before she entered the picture. Are you? Sorry? Victoria looked up, and her eyes were sharp despite the tears. You destroyed my wedding. You humiliated me in front of everyone I know. My parents flew in from D.C. My grandmother came from London. 300 people watched my perfect day fall apart. Gloria destroyed your wedding when she decided to use me as a prop, Evelyn corrected. I just showed up with the truth. You could have told him privately. You could have contacted him before today. Could I? Would he have listened, or would his lawyers have filed emergency custody motions while Gloria launched a PR campaign painting me as a vindictive ex trying to trap her son? Evelyn moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. I've spent 4 years building a life where I don't need the Caldwells, where I can protect my children from people who measure worth by bloodlines and bank accounts. Coming to that wedding was a mistake. Then why did you come? The question hung in the air. Evelyn had asked herself the same thing 100 times since leaving the estate. Because I wanted them to see what they'd thrown away, she admitted. I wanted Gloria to know she didn't break me. I wanted Nathan to understand the magnitude of his mistake. It was petty and it was stupid, and it put my sons in a terrible situation. So if you came here for an apology, you have it. I shouldn't have involved the boys. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, steadier, more thoughtful. I went to Yale, she said, double major in political science and economics, graduated summa cum laude, worked on 3 Senate campaigns before I was 25. I'm not some airhead socialite who married for a name. I never thought you were. But Nathan's family did. Does? Victoria's hands clenched in her lap. Gloria wanted me because my father's a senator, because my last name opens doors, not because of who I am. And Nathan? She laughed bitterly. Nathan wanted someone who would make his mother happy, someone who fit the image he'd built for his future. That sounds familiar? Evelyn said quietly. Did you love him when you married him? The question caught her off guard. Evelyn thought about the man Nathan had been 7 years ago, charming, ambitious, full of dreams about changing the world through the family business, before Gloria's influence had calcified him into a replica of his father. I loved who I thought he was, Evelyn said. Turned out I was wrong. I don't think I ever loved him, Victoria admitted. I loved the idea of him, the partnership, the political advantages. My father wants to run for president. A Caldwell marriage would have been perfect for that. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed. Does that make me as bad as them? It makes you honest. Victoria stood, crossing to the window beside Evelyn. They stood in silence, 2 women who'd been used as pieces in other people's games. Those boys, Victoria said softly. They look exactly like him. I know. They're beautiful. I know that too. Victoria turned to face her. What are you going to do? About custody? Fight for primary custody. Allow supervised visitation if Nathan proves he's serious about being a father. Keep Gloria as far away from my children as legally possible. Evelyn's voice was steel. I'm not trying to keep them from their father, but I will not let them be raised by people who think love is conditional on meeting impossible standards. Nathan will fight you. He has unlimited resources. So do I now. And I have something they don't. I actually want what's best for my sons, not what looks best in a family portrait. Victoria reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. This is my personal cell, not the number the Caldwells have. If you need information about their legal strategy, their finances, anything that might help you protect those boys, call me. Evelyn stared at the card. Why would you help me? Because I spent 6 months planning a wedding to a man who didn't tell me he had 3 children. Because Gloria Caldwell looked me in the eye 2 hours ago and asked if we could still salvage the ceremony after this unfortunate disruption. Because I just watched a family more concerned with appearances than with 3 4-year-old boys who deserve better. Victoria's voice shook. And because if I'd married Nathan, eventually, I would have been you, discarded when I stopped being useful. Evelyn took the card. Victoria moved toward the elevator, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you came today. Better to know now than 5 years and 2 kids into a marriage that was always about strategy. What will you do? Evelyn asked. Go back to D.C., work on my father's campaign, maybe actually date someone I choose instead of someone who checks boxes on my family's list. She smiled sadly. And definitely get a therapist, because today was traumatic. The elevator doors opened. Victoria stepped inside, then held the door. They're going to come after you hard, she warned. Gloria doesn't lose. She'll use every connection, every dirty trick. Nathan's father has judges on speed dial. They'll try to paint you as unfit, vindictive, a gold digger despite your money. Let them try. I mean it. They'll go after your business, your reputation, your mental health. Nothing is off limits. I've already survived their worst, Evelyn said. I'm not that scared girl anymore. Victoria nodded slowly. No, you're really not. The elevator doors started to close. Take care of those boys. They're lucky to have you. Then she was gone, and Evelyn was alone in her penthouse with the city glittering below and the weight of the coming battle settling on her shoulders. She checked on the boys one more time. Sebastian had kicked off his covers. Miles was clutching a stuffed dinosaur. Oliver had somehow rotated 90 degrees and was sleeping perpendicular to his pillow. She adjusted blankets, kissed foreheads, whispered promises they couldn't hear. Then she went to her office and started making calls. Her head of legal was first. Margaret Chen was 62, had never lost a custody case, and had a reputation for eviscerating opposing counsel. She answered on the second ring despite the late hour. I saw the news, Margaret said without preamble. Tell me everything. Evelyn did. Every detail from the invitation to Victoria's visit. Margaret listened in silence, and when Evelyn finished, there was a long pause. They invited you to humiliate you, and you showed up with proof of paternity? Margaret's voice held reluctant admiration. Bold. Stupid, but bold. I know. Expect filings by Monday morning. Emergency custody petition, allegations of parental alienation, probably a motion to establish temporary custody pending investigation. They'll ask for psychological evaluations of you and the children. They'll request full financial disclosure. They'll dig into every aspect of your life looking for ammunition. I'm ready. Are you? Because the Caldwells play dirty. They'll leak to the press. They'll have investigators following you. They'll try to prove you're an unfit mother who deliberately hid children from their father out of spite. Then we prove I hid them from a family with a documented history of emotional abuse and manipulation. Evelyn opened her laptop, pulling up files she'd been compiling for 4 years. I have recordings of Gloria telling Nathan I was beneath the family. I have emails from their lawyers threatening to destroy my credit unless I signed away any claim to marital assets. I have documented evidence that they blacklisted me from jobs in my field. And I have 4 years of meticulously tracked parenting records showing stable housing, excellent medical care, and healthy child development. Margaret was quiet then. Send me everything, tonight. I'll have my team start building the case. One more thing, Evelyn said. I want supervised visitation only. No unsupervised access to Nathan until he completes parenting classes and therapy. And I want Gloria Caldwell explicitly barred from any contact with the boys. That's aggressive. That's necessary. She's toxic and manipulative. I won't expose my children to that. It'll make you look vindictive. The court might see it as you trying to punish the father by restricting access to extended family. Then we make them understand why. We document every manipulation, every power play, every instance of conditional love. We show the court exactly who these people are. Margaret sighed. This is going to get ugly, Evelyn. It already is ugly. I'm just refusing to pretend anymore. They talked for another hour, strategizing, building defenses, preparing for the onslaught. When Evelyn finally hung up, it was past midnight. Her phone showed 43 missed calls and over 100 text messages. Most were from reporters. Some were from old friends who'd seen the news. A few were from business associates offering support or asking for comment. One was from a number she didn't recognize. Unknown. This is Richard Caldwell, Nathan's father. We need to discuss this situation before lawyers make it worse. Call me. Evelyn deleted it. Another text came through immediately. Unknown. Ignoring me won't make this go away. Those boys are Caldwells. They have rights to the family legacy. We can arrange generous support in exchange for reasonable custody. She blocked the number. A third message appeared from yet another unknown contact. Unknown. $10 million. Full legal custody to Nathan. You can have visitation. This is the best offer you'll get. Evelyn stared at the screen, rage building. They were trying to buy her children. Not co-parent them, not create a healthy shared custody arrangement, buy them outright like property. She took a screenshot and forwarded it to Margaret with a single word. Evidence. Then she shut off her phone completely and poured herself a glass of wine. Tomorrow would bring chaos, legal filings, media scrutiny, the full weight of Caldwell influence trying to crush her. But tonight, she had her son sleeping safely in the next room and the knowledge that she'd survived worse. The morning brought exactly what Margaret predicted. Evelyn woke to her doorman calling up. A courier had an envelope that required her personal signature. She threw on a robe and met him in the lobby, already knowing what it was. Emergency motion for temporary custody. Filed at midnight by Nathan's legal team, requesting immediate DNA testing, temporary shared custody pending full hearing, and a restraining order preventing Evelyn from leaving the state with the children. The accusations were brutal. That she'd deliberately concealed the pregnancy to manipulate Nathan, that she'd deprived the children of their father out of spite, that she'd used the boys as weapons to disrupt his wedding, that her surprise appearance suggested mental instability and poor judgment. They'd attached tabloid photos from yesterday, Evelyn walking into the wedding, the confrontation in the ballroom, her leaving with the boys. The images were framed to make her look aggressive, calculating, cruel. She read every page, feeling nothing. They'd shown their hand. Now she could show hers. Margaret filed their response that afternoon. It included a detailed timeline of the marriage and divorce, documentation of the Caldwells' harassment campaign, recordings of Gloria's verbal abuse, and 4 years of parenting records that painted Evelyn as a devoted, capable mother who'd made difficult choices to protect her children. They also filed their own motion, requesting primary physical custody with Nathan receiving supervised visitation, pending completion of parenting classes, and an explicit order barring Gloria Caldwell from any contact with the children based on her history of emotional manipulation and verbal abuse. The response was backed by statements from the boys' pediatrician, their daycare teachers, and a child psychologist who'd evaluated all 3 boys and found them healthy, well-adjusted, and securely attached to their mother. The media went insane. Custody battle explodes. Ex-wife. Claims Caldwell matriarch unfit for grandchildren. Secret recordings. Expose society family's abuse of ex-daughter-in-law. She hid them to protect them. Lawyers release statement in Caldwell. Triplets case, Evelyn's phone, once she turned it back on, exploded with interview requests. Good Morning America wanted her on Monday. The New York Times requested an exclusive. 3 different podcast hosts wanted to tell her story. She declined everything. This wasn't about public opinion. It was about protecting her sons. But the Caldwells had no such restraint. Gloria appeared on a morning show 2 days after the wedding, perfectly coiffed and devastated. She spoke about the heartbreak of discovering 3 grandsons she'd never met, about how Evelyn had cruelly deprived them of their family, about how they just wanted what was best for the children. She didn't mention the invitation designed to humiliate, didn't mention the verbal abuse or the harassment campaign. She played the role of wronged grandmother perfectly. Nathan gave his own interview, looking earnest and wounded. He talked about his shock at discovering he was a father, about wanting to make up for lost time, about being ready to step up and provide for his sons. He didn't mention the divorce he'd initiated, didn't mention standing by while his mother destroyed his ex-wife's life. He played the role of devoted father perfectly. The narrative was being shaped, poor Nathan, denied knowledge of his own children by a vindictive ex-wife. Heartbroken family, just wanting to know their grandsons. Evelyn watched it all from her office while the boys played in the next room, oblivious. She felt Margaret's warning settling in. This was going to get ugly. Her business started feeling the pressure by day 3. 2 of her Fortune 500 clients called to express concerns about the media attention affecting their brand image. One suggested she take a step back from day-to-day operations until things quieted down. She refused. Then the investigator showed up. A private detective hired by the Caldwells, following her from her building to the boys' preschool to her office, taking photos, making notes, building a case. When Evelyn confronted him, he smiled. "Just doing my job, ma'am. Making sure those kids are in good hands. Get away from my children, or I'll file harassment charges." "Public sidewalk. I have every right to be here." She called Margaret, who called a judge, who issued a temporary restraining order, keeping investigators at least 200 feet from the boys. It was a small victory, but it felt hollow, because the investigators had already gotten what they needed. The filing came a week after the wedding, an amended petition with new allegations, that Evelyn frequently worked late hours, leaving the children with hired caregivers, that she'd been seen at business dinners while the boys were home with nannies, that her demanding career meant she couldn't provide the stable, present parenting environment children needed. They'd twisted her success into evidence of neglect. Margaret called it what it was: weaponized sexism. They're arguing that being a working mother makes you unfit, while Nathan, who has the same demanding career, is somehow more capable of providing stability. "Will it work?" Evelyn asked. "With the right judge? But maybe. We need to show that your work schedule is flexible, that you prioritize the boys, that hired help doesn't mean absent parenting." But that night, lying awake staring at the ceiling, Evelyn felt the fear creeping in. What if they actually succeeded? What if some judge looked at the Caldwell name, the Caldwell money, the perfect image they projected, and decided Nathan deserved equal custody? What if she lost her boys? The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, the court ordered supervised visitation. Nathan could see the boys for 2 hours twice a week at a neutral facility with a court-appointed supervisor present. Evelyn had to explain it to 3 4-year-olds who barely understood who Nathan was, let alone why they had to spend time with him. "Remember the man from the big house?" she said gently, all 3 boys crowded on her lap. "He's your biological father. That means you're related to him by blood." "Like family?" Sebastian asked. "Yes, like family. The court says he gets to spend some time with you so you can get to know each other." Miles's face scrunched up. "Do we have to?" "Yes, baby, but I'll be right there in the waiting room the whole time, and if you don't feel safe or comfortable, you can tell the supervisor and she'll bring you to me immediately." "What if we don't like him?" Oliver asked. Evelyn's heart broke a little. "Then we tell the judge that. Your feelings matter, sweetie. You get to have feelings about this." The first visitation was excruciating. They met at a family therapy center in a neutral part of the city. Nathan arrived early, nervous, wearing jeans and a casual shirt like he'd researched what fathers were supposed to wear to these things. The boys clung to Evelyn, suddenly shy. They'd been excited in the car, asking questions about their daddy, but now faced with the reality, they retreated. Nathan knelt down, trying to make himself less intimidating. "Hi guys, I'm Nathan. I'm your dad." Silence. The supervisor, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, gently encouraged the boys forward. "Why don't you show your dad the toys we have? I bet he'd love to see what you like to play with." Sebastian, always the bravest, took a tentative step forward. "Do you like dinosaurs?" Nathan's face transformed with relief and genuine smile. "I love dinosaurs. I had a whole collection when I was your age." "I have a T-Rex," Sebastian said, warming up. "His name is Rexy, and he eats bad guys." "That's a great name. Can you show me?" Miles and Oliver followed their brother slowly, and Evelyn forced herself to leave the room. She sat in the waiting area, hands clenched, listening through the door for any sign of distress. Instead, she heard laughter. Nathan was doing dinosaur voices. The boys were giggling, correcting his pronunciation of Triceratops, showing off their collection. The sound of her children playing with their father was surreal and painful and somehow right all at once. When the 2 hours ended, the boys ran to her, chattering about how their dad knew all the dinosaur names and promised to bring them more next time. Nathan appeared in the doorway, looking shaken and grateful. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for letting me see them." "I'm not doing this for you," Evelyn said. "I'm doing it for them." "I know, but still, thank you." He left before she could respond. The visitations continued. Twice a week, 2 hours each time. Nathan showed up consistently, came prepared with activities, never pushed too hard. He was learning how to be a father in real time, and despite everything, Evelyn could see him trying. But the legal battle raged on. The Caldwells leaked more stories to the press. Sources claimed Evelyn had a drinking problem, that she'd been fired from jobs before starting her company, that she'd had multiple failed relationships since the divorce. All lies, all carefully designed to erode her credibility. Margaret fought back with defamation suits and court filings demanding sanctions, but the damage was cumulative. People started believing there must be something wrong with her. Why else would she hide children from their father? Her company's stock price dropped. 2 more clients quietly ended their contracts. Her board of directors requested a meeting to discuss her controversial situation. The pressure was crushing. Then Richard Caldwell made his move. He showed up at her office unannounced, bypassing security by claiming to be there for a legitimate business meeting. Evelyn's assistant buzzed her, panicked. "There's a man here who says he's your ex-father-in-law and he's refusing to leave until you see him." Evelyn considered calling security, considered having him removed, but she was curious what Nathan's father thought he could accomplish that his lawyers hadn't. "Send him in." Richard Caldwell was 71, but looked 60, maintained through golf and expensive health care. He'd built the Caldwell fortune through ruthless business deals and strategic marriages. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. He sat in her office like he owned it. "Impressive operation you've built here. I've been looking into your company. Smart business model, good margins." "What do you want, Richard?" "To make you an offer, a real one, not the insulting lowball you've been rejecting." He leaned forward. $25 million, full custody to Nathan. You get supervised visitation and an ironclad NDA. The boys grow up with all the advantages of the Caldwell name. You disappear quietly. "No." $30 million. "No." 40. "You can't buy my children." His expression hardened. "Everyone has a price? Name yours." "There isn't one, and this meeting is over." She stood, gesturing to the door. Richard didn't move. "You think you can win this? Against our resources, our connections?" "I've been making phone calls, Evelyn. Your board is getting nervous. Your clients are having second thoughts. Your reputation is being systematically destroyed." He smiled coldly. "We can make your business disappear. We can make sure you never work in this city again. We can bury you in legal fees until you're living in that studio apartment again. Get out. Or you could take the money. Set yourself up somewhere else. Start over without the constant battle. Your boys would have everything. The best schools, the best opportunities, the Caldwell legacy. The same legacy that taught Nathan to value people by their usefulness, that taught Gloria to measure worth by bloodlines. That made you think offering me $40 million for my sons is somehow reasonable?" Evelyn's voice was ice. "I would rather burn every dollar I have fighting you than sell them into that family." Richard stood slowly. "You're making a mistake. You already made yours. When you raised a son who thinks love is transactional, when you built a family where everyone's a chess piece, when you decided coming here and trying to buy children was an acceptable strategy. Those boys deserve their heritage. Those boys deserve to be loved unconditionally, something your family is incapable of." He moved to the door, then paused. "Last chance, $40 million. Think about what you could do with that money." "I'm worth more than that on my own. Your money means nothing to me." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, respect, calculation. "Then I guess we'll see you in court." When he left, Evelyn's hands were shaking. She called Margaret immediately. "He just offered me $40 million for full custody." Margaret's voice was grim. "Did you record it?" "No, I didn't think, damn it." "It's okay. But Evelyn, they're getting desperate. Desperate people make mistakes, but they also get dangerous. You need to be careful." That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. She checked on the boys 3 times, making sure they were safe, that no one had somehow gotten past building security. She reviewed her company's financials, preparing for the worst. She read and reread the legal filings, looking for weaknesses. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed, a text from Victoria's number. Victoria. They're planning something. I overheard Richard and Gloria talking about accelerating the timeline. Don't know what it means, but be ready. Evelyn stared at the message. Whatever was coming, it was coming soon. She just didn't know it would come from inside her own company. The board meeting was called for Monday morning. 8 directors sat around her conference table, people she'd hired, who'd built this company alongside her. They looked uncomfortable, avoiding her eyes. Her COO, David, spoke first. Evelyn, we need to discuss the situation with your personal life and how it's affecting the company. My personal life is none of the company's business. It is when clients are leaving, when our stock price drops 15%, when we're getting negative press coverage daily. He pushed a folder across the table. We've had 12 requests for you to step down from day-to-day operations. The board has voted. Evelyn felt cold spreading through her chest. Voted on what? We're asking you to take a temporary leave of absence. 6 months. Let things calm down. Put someone else as the public face until the custody situation resolves. You're removing me from my own company. We're protecting the company, another director said. This isn't personal. This is entirely personal. The Caldwells got to you, didn't they? Promised you something? Threatened you? Silence. Who? Evelyn demanded. Which of you took their money? More silence, but she saw guilt flash across several faces. I built this company from nothing, she said, voice shaking. I made you all rich, and you're going to let them take it away from me? David had the decency to look ashamed. It's already decided. The vote was 7-1. We're sorry, Evelyn, but it's what's best for everyone. She looked at each of them, colleagues, friends, people she'd trusted, and saw that Richard had been right about one thing. They'd made phone calls, applied pressure, found the weak points and exploited them. Fine, she said quietly. I'll take the leave, but remember this moment. Remember that when a powerful family wanted to destroy me, you helped them. Remember that when you look at your stock options and your bonuses and your successful careers that I built for you. She walked out of her own company for the last time, head high, heartbreaking. In the car, she finally let herself cry. Not for the company, she could rebuild that, but for the boys, who were watching their mother lose piece after piece of her life. Who might start to believe that their existence was the problem? She wouldn't let them think that. Couldn't. So she wiped her tears, called Margaret, and started planning the next phase of the war. Because if the Caldwells wanted to take everything from her, they were about to learn that she'd already lost everything once before and survived. This time, she had so much more to fight for. The preliminary custody hearing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning in family court, and Evelyn woke before dawn with her stomach in knots. She'd been forced out of her own company, her reputation was being systematically destroyed in the media, and now she had to stand in front of a judge and prove she deserved to keep her children. Margaret arrived at 7 with coffee and a leather briefcase full of documentation. She looked tired but fierce, every inch the warrior Evelyn needed in her corner. Remember, Margaret said as they reviewed strategy one last time, stay calm no matter what they say. Don't react to their accusations. Let me handle the legal arguments. You're here to show the judge you're a stable, loving mother. That's it. What if it's not enough? It will be. We have 4 years of evidence showing you've been an excellent parent. They have speculation and money. Money doesn't win custody cases. Parenting does. But walking into the courthouse, seeing the crowd of reporters held back by security, hearing the shouted questions and camera clicks, Evelyn felt her confidence wavering. This had become a spectacle, and spectacles rarely ended well for the people at the center of them. The courtroom was smaller than she expected, cramped and institutional with fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill. The Caldwells were already seated, Nathan looking hollow-eyed and nervous, Gloria composed and cold in a Chanel suit, Richard beside her radiating quiet menace. Their legal team took up an entire table. 5 lawyers in expensive suits, all from the most prestigious firm in the state. They'd brought enough firepower to argue a Supreme Court case. Margaret sat alone at the defense table, unintimidated. Judge Patricia Hartwell entered and everyone stood. She was in her late 50s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Evelyn had researched her, known for being fair but no nonsense, protective of children's rights, skeptical of wealthy parents who thought money solved everything. That was something, at least. This is a preliminary hearing to establish temporary custody arrangements for minor children Oliver Miles and Sebastian Moore Caldwell, Judge Hartwell began, reading from the file. Mr. Caldwell is petitioning for temporary joint custody with the possibility of equal parenting time. Miss Moore is requesting primary physical custody with supervised visitation for Mr. Caldwell. Let's start with the petitioner. Nathan's lead attorney stood, a silver-haired man named Harrison Webb, who'd made his career representing wealthy families in custody disputes. His voice was smooth, practiced, designed to sound reasonable while delivering devastating blows. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. Nathan Caldwell is a loving father who was deliberately denied knowledge of his children's existence for 4 years. Ms. Moore made a unilateral decision to deprive him of his parental rights, depriving the children of their father and depriving the Caldwell family of their grandchildren. She has demonstrated a pattern of alienating behavior that continues to this day. Margaret stood. Objection. Counsel is making arguments rather than presenting evidence. Sustained. Mr. Webb, present your case without the editorial. Webb didn't miss a beat. Your Honor, we'd like to call Nathan Caldwell to the stand. Nathan took the oath, his hand shaking slightly. He looked at Evelyn once, then quickly away. Webb led him through the testimony like a choreographed dance. How shocked Nathan was to discover he had children. How much he'd missed by not knowing them. How he'd been showing up consistently to every supervised visitation, learning to be a father, trying to build a relationship. Mr. Caldwell, when did you first learn you were a father? At my wedding, 3 weeks ago. Evelyn showed up with the boys and His voice cracked convincingly. I couldn't believe it. I'd missed 4 years. First words, first steps, everything. Had Ms. Moore ever contacted you about being pregnant? No, never. Did she give you any opportunity to be part of your children's lives? No, she made that decision for me. Webb produced the divorce papers, highlighting the date. The divorce was finalized in March of 2022. The children were born in November of 2022. Miss Moore would have known she was pregnant for at least 2 months before their birth, possibly longer. She never once reached out to inform you? Never. How has that made you feel? Margaret stood again. Objection. Mr. Caldwell's feelings aren't relevant to the best interests of the children. Your Honor, the father's emotional state and his desire to parent are absolutely relevant, Webb countered. I'll allow it, but keep it brief, Judge Hartwell said. Nathan looked directly at the judge. I feel like I've been robbed. Like someone stole 4 years of my children's lives from me. I understand Evelyn and I had a difficult divorce, but that's between us. The boys shouldn't have been punished for it. It was a good performance. Evelyn had to give him that. He sounded genuinely wounded, genuinely eager to be a father. Webb continued. Mr. Caldwell, what kind of relationship are you building with your sons during the supervised visitations? We play together. I'm learning what they like. Dinosaurs, building blocks, stories. Sebastian wants to be a paleontologist. Miles loves to draw. Oliver is curious about everything. His voice softened with what seemed like genuine affection. They're amazing kids, and every time I see them, I think about all the moments I missed. And whose fault is that? Objection! Margaret was on her feet. Your Honor, this is blatant manipulation. Sustained. Mr. Webb, ask questions. Don't lead the witness into inflammatory statements. But the damage was done. The implication hung in the air. Evelyn had stolen Nathan's chance to be a father. Webb switched tactics. Mr. Caldwell, can you tell the court about your current living situation? I have a 5-bedroom house in Greenwich with a full acre of property. There's a playground in the backyard. I've already set up 3 bedrooms for the boys, 1 for each so they have their own space. I work from home most days as a financial consultant, so I'd be present and available. My parents live nearby and are eager to be involved grandparents. And your financial situation? I have a trust fund and investment income that provides more than adequate support. I can give the boys everything they need, the best schools, medical care, opportunities. Margaret made a note. Evelyn knew what she was thinking. They were setting up the argument that Nathan could provide material advantages that Evelyn, currently unemployed, could not. Webb sat down, satisfied. Margaret stood immediately. Mr. Caldwell, you stated you work from home most days as a financial consultant. How many hours per week do you work? Nathan hesitated. It varies, 50, 60 hours sometimes. And when you have the boys for what you're calling equal parenting time, how exactly would that work with a 60-hour work week? I'd hire help, nannies, caregivers. So the boys would be raised primarily by hired help while you work? That's not, I'd be there in the evenings, on weekends, just like Ms. Moore has been doing for 4 years, correct? She works, they're in quality daycare, she's with them evenings and weekends. Except she's been doing it alone, without the family support system you claim to have. Nathan's jaw tightened. I would have been there if I'd known they existed. Let's talk about that. You testified that the divorce was difficult. Can you elaborate on why it ended? We weren't compatible. We wanted different things. Specifically, your mother wanted different things, correct? She didn't approve of Evelyn? My mother's opinion wasn't the only factor. But it was a factor. In fact, wasn't it your mother who contacted the divorce attorneys before you did? Webb jumped up. Objection. Mrs. Caldwell's involvement in her son's divorce is not relevant to this custody matter. Your Honor, it's absolutely relevant, Margaret countered. The petitioner is requesting that his parents have unsupervised access to the children. We need to establish what kind of influence Gloria Caldwell has had on her son's decisions and relationships. Judge Hartwell considered. I'll allow limited questioning on this topic. Ms. Chen, keep it focused. Margaret turned back to Nathan. Did your mother contact the divorce attorneys? She may have made some initial calls, yes. And did she encourage you to end your marriage to Evelyn? Nathan shifted uncomfortably. She had concerns about our compatibility. What kind of concerns? That Evelyn and I came from different backgrounds. Different socioeconomic backgrounds? Among other things. Did your mother ever call Evelyn trash in your presence? Silence. Nathan's face flushed red. Mr. Caldwell, please answer the question. I don't recall specific. You don't recall your mother calling your wife trash? Margaret's voice was sharp. That seems like something that would stick in your memory. She may have said something in the heat of an argument. And did you defend your wife when your mother verbally abused her? Webb was up again. Objection. Counsel is being argumentative and making assumptions. Sustained. Ms. Chen, rephrase. Margaret softened her tone fractionally. Mr. Caldwell, when your mother made disparaging comments about Evelyn, how did you respond? I tried to keep the peace. It was complicated. You kept the peace by staying silent while your mother insulted your wife? I didn't want to cause family conflict. So you chose your mother's comfort over your wife's dignity. Is that a fair characterization? Nathan's composure was cracking. That's not fair. You're twisting. I'm establishing a pattern, Mr. Caldwell. A pattern where you allow your mother to control your relationships and decisions. Which brings us back to why Miss Moore might have been reluctant to tell you about the pregnancy. She knew your mother would immediately try to take control, didn't she? That's speculation. Is it? Let's talk about what happened after Evelyn revealed the boy's existence. Within 24 hours, your father showed up at her office offering her $40 million for full custody. Did you know about that? Nathan's eyes widened. No, that's not. You didn't know your father tried to buy your children? No. So your family makes major decisions about your children without consulting you. That's concerning, isn't it? Webb was standing again, objecting, but Nathan was visibly shaken. Margaret had exposed the truth. Nathan wasn't really in control of anything. He was still dancing to Gloria's tune. Judge Hartwell called for a brief recess. In the hallway, Evelyn saw Nathan arguing quietly with his father, saw Gloria's icy disapproval. The facade was cracking. When court resumed, Margaret called her witnesses. The boy's pediatrician testified about their excellent health and development. Their daycare director spoke about Evelyn's consistent involvement despite her demanding work schedule. A child psychologist explained that the boys showed secure attachment to their mother and typical development for their age. Then Margaret called Evelyn to the stand. She'd practiced this testimony dozens of times, but walking to the witness box with Nathan and Gloria and Richard all watching, she felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she hadn't since the divorce. Margaret started gently. "Ms. Moore, can you tell the court about your relationship with the boys?" Evelyn took a breath. "They're my whole world. From the moment I found out I was pregnant, every decision I've made has been about giving them the best life possible. I work hard so they have security. I've built a successful company so they'd never experience the financial instability I did. Everything I do is for them." "When did you discover you were pregnant?" 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized. I was still living in a studio apartment, barely making ends meet. I went to a clinic for what I thought was stress-related symptoms. They did an ultrasound and found 3 heartbeats. "How did you feel?" "Terrified. I was alone, broke, and suddenly facing triplets. But also," her voice caught slightly, "also hopeful. Like maybe I could build something good from the wreckage of my marriage." "Why didn't you tell Nathan?" This was the crucial question, the one everything hinged on. "Because I was afraid," Evelyn said honestly. "His family had spent our entire marriage making me feel worthless. They'd used their money and connections to destroy my credit, my reputation, my ability to work. And I knew that if they found out about the babies, they'd do worse. They'd take them from me, not because they loved them, but because they were Caldwells, property to be controlled." That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Gloria Caldwell doesn't love people. She collects them, displays them when they're useful, discards them when they're not. I couldn't risk my sons becoming chess pieces in her power games. Webb cross-examined viciously. He hammered at the legal implications of hiding children from their father. He questioned her mental state, her judgment, her ability to put the children's needs above her own hurt feelings. "Isn't it true, Ms. Moore, that you're currently unemployed?" "I'm on temporary leave from my company." "The company whose board voted to remove you?" "They asked me to step back temporarily." "Because your personal drama was affecting business?" Margaret objected, but the implication was clear. Evelyn was unstable, unemployable, a liability. Webb pressed harder. "You claim you hid the children to protect them, but isn't it true you were actually punishing Nathan, punishing him for the divorce by denying him his children?" "No, I was protecting them." "From what? A father who wanted to know them? Grandparents who could provide opportunities?" "From a family that treats people like possessions. From a grandmother who would teach them that love is conditional on meeting impossible standards. From a system that values appearances over authentic relationships. Or maybe from a father who moved on and was happy while you were struggling and bitter?" "Objection!" Margaret's voice rang out. "Counsel is badgering the witness." "Sustained. Mr. Webb, ask questions, don't make speeches." But Webb had planted the seed that Evelyn was vindictive, not protective, that her decisions were about hurting Nathan, not helping the boys. He wrapped up with a final blow. "Ms. Moore, you claim to have the children's best interests at heart, but showing up at Nathan's wedding with 3 boys he'd never met, disrupting the ceremony, creating a public spectacle, how exactly was that in their best interests?" Evelyn felt the trap closing. "I made a mistake going to that wedding. I should have handled it privately." "So you admit your judgment was flawed?" "I admit I'm human. I made a choice based on anger and I regret it, but that doesn't change 4 years of excellent parenting. Doesn't it? If your judgment is flawed under stress, how can this court trust you with primary custody of 3 small children?" She had no good answer for that. When the testimony concluded, Judge Hartwell looked exhausted. "I'll need time to review all the evidence and testimony. I'll issue a ruling on temporary custody within 2 weeks. Until then, the current supervised visitation arrangement remains in place." 2 weeks of waiting, 2 weeks of uncertainty. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Evelyn kept her head down, letting Margaret run interference, and climbed into the car where her driver waited. She didn't cry until she was safely home, door locked, boys at daycare for another hour. Then she let herself break down completely. She'd been calm and articulate on the stand, but Webb had still made her look vindictive, had still suggested her judgment was flawed, had still painted Nathan as the wronged father just trying to know his kids. Her phone rang. Victoria's number. "I watched the live updates," Victoria said without preamble. "You held up well. I feel like I lost." Webb's good at making people feel that way. But Margaret landed some solid hits too. The part about Nathan letting his mother control him? That's going to resonate. "How do you know what happened in the courtroom? The judge barred cameras." "I have friends who were there. Evelyn, I need to tell you something." Victoria paused. "I've been going through Nathan's emails. He gave me access before everything imploded, never revoked it. There's correspondence between him and his father about the custody case, about strategy, about how to paint you as unstable." Evelyn sat up straight. "That's attorney-client privilege. It's not admissible." "Not the lawyer emails, but the family ones are fair game, and there's one from Gloria that's particularly damning, from 2 days ago. She's instructing Nathan on exactly what to say in court, coaching him on how to appear sympathetic. It's manipulation in writing." "Can you send it to me?" "Already forwarded to Margaret. But Evelyn, there's something else. Gloria mentioned the timeline again, said they need to accelerate before she finds out. I think they have something planned, something they're keeping from you." A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. "Like what?" "I don't know, but be careful. And maybe check your company's financials. Richard mentioned making calls to your board. I think they did more than just pressure them." After hanging up, Evelyn immediately called her CFO, one of the few people at the company she still trusted. "James, I need you to look at something for me. Has there been any unusual activity in company accounts? Any large transactions or changes to stock holdings?" James was quiet for a long moment. "Evelyn, I'm not supposed to tell you this. The board was very clear." "James, please." Another pause. Then, 3 days ago, Richard Caldwell purchased 23% of the company's stock through various shell corporations. He's the second largest shareholder now, and he's been making noise about calling for a vote to remove you permanently, not just temporarily. The room spun. "He's trying to take my company. He's trying to prove you're an unfit mother by destroying your income source and career. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I should have called you sooner." She hung up and immediately called Margaret, who swore creatively. "This is their play," Margaret said. "They're going to argue in court that you're unemployed and unemployable, that you can't provide financial stability. Meanwhile, Nathan has trust funds and a stable career. The judge might see that as a significant factor in custody. What can we do? We file an emergency motion exposing their stock manipulation and arguing it's evidence of harassment designed to undermine your custody case. We show the judge exactly what they're doing. Will it work? I don't know, but we have to try." The emergency motion was filed that evening. In it, Margaret laid out the pattern of harassment, the forced leave from work, the stock manipulation, Richard's attempted bribery, the systematic destruction of Evelyn's career and reputation. She argued that the Caldwells were using their wealth and connections not to win custody through legitimate means, but to manufacture evidence that Evelyn was unstable and financially struggling. She attached Victoria's email as evidence of Gloria coaching Nathan's testimony, attached documentation of Richard's stock purchases, attached everything they had showing a deliberate campaign of destruction. The Caldwells responded with their own filing, claiming Evelyn was making wild accusations to distract from her own poor judgment and parenting decisions. They denied any coordination beyond normal family discussions. They painted themselves as concerned grandparents and a devoted father just trying to do right by their newly discovered grandchildren. Judge Hartwell called an emergency hearing for the following Monday. This time, the courtroom was packed. Word had spread that something explosive was coming. Reporters filled the back rows. Evelyn spotted several former colleagues, some looking sympathetic, others curious about the spectacle. Gloria sat ramrod straight, her face a mask of controlled fury. She knew her emails had been leaked, knew Victoria had betrayed them. The judge entered and everyone stood. Hartwell looked even more exhausted than before. "I've reviewed the emergency motion and the response," she began. This case has become extraordinarily complicated. We're not just talking about custody anymore. We're talking about alleged harassment, financial manipulation, and what appears to be a coordinated effort to undermine Ms. Moore's parenting capability. Webb stood. Your Honor, these are wild accusations without real evidence. Sit down, Mr. Webb. I've read the emails from Gloria Caldwell coaching her son's testimony. I've seen the documentation of stock purchases. I've reviewed the timeline of Miss Moore's forced leave from her own company. This isn't speculation. This is documented fact. Gloria's face paled slightly. Judge Hartwell continued, her voice hard. What concerns me most is the pattern. Mr. Caldwell's family has a history of using their wealth and influence to control people. They did it during the divorce. They're doing it now. And if I grant them unsupervised access to these children, I have no confidence they won't continue this pattern of manipulation. Nathan started to stand. Your Honor, I'm not trying to manipulate. Mr. Caldwell, your mother sent you a script for your testimony. You followed it almost word for word. Whether you meant to manipulate or not, you allowed yourself to be manipulated. That's equally concerning. She shuffled papers, and Evelyn's heart hammered. This was it, the decision that would determine everything. I'm issuing the following temporary custody arrangement, Judge Hartwell said. Primary physical custody remains with Miss Moore. Mr. Caldwell will have supervised visitation 3 times per week, 3 hours per session. However, she looked directly at Gloria. Mrs. Gloria Caldwell is barred from any contact with the children pending a full psychological evaluation and family therapy assessment. Her behavior suggests a pattern of manipulation and control that I will not expose young children to. Gloria gasped audibly. Richard's face turned dark red. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering both parents to complete parenting classes and family therapy. Mr. Caldwell needs to demonstrate he can make decisions independent of his family's influence. Mrs. Moore needs to show she can facilitate a healthy relationship between the children and their father despite past hurt. Wasn't everything Evelyn wanted, but it was something. The boys would stay with her. Gloria was barred from contact. Nathan would have to prove himself. We'll reconvene in 3 months for a full custody hearing, Judge Hartwell concluded. Between now and then, both sides will abide by my orders, and if I catch anyone violating these terms or continuing this harassment campaign, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Everyone nodded. Outside the courthouse, Gloria turned on Nathan with barely contained fury. Evelyn couldn't hear the words, but she could see the venom. Nathan stood there taking it, looking small and defeated. Richard pulled Gloria away before she could cause a scene, but not before she shot Evelyn a look of pure hatred. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But for now, Evelyn had won a battle. Just one battle in what would clearly be a long war. Margaret grabbed her arm as they headed for the car. That was as good as we could have hoped for. Gloria being barred from contact is huge. They'll appeal. Probably. But it'll take time. And meanwhile, you keep being an excellent mother. You follow every one of the judge's orders. You facilitate Nathan's relationship with the boys. You show the court that you're the bigger person. Evelyn nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead. 3 months until the full hearing. 3 months of supervised visitations and parenting classes and therapy. 3 months of the Caldwells plotting their next move. She picked up the boys from daycare that afternoon and held them a little tighter. They chattered about their day, blissfully unaware that a judge had just decided their fate in a courtroom downtown. Mama, when do we see our daddy again? Oliver asked. Thursday, she said. He's going to take you to the park this time. Will the mean lady be there? Sebastian asked. Evelyn's heart clenched. They'd only met Gloria once, briefly, and they'd already picked up on her coldness. No, baby, she won't be there. Good, Miles said firmly. She made you sad. Out of the mouths of children. They saw more than adults thought, felt more than they could articulate. That night, after the boys were asleep, Evelyn sat at her kitchen table with a glass of wine and Victoria's latest message. Victoria. I heard about the ruling. Gloria is losing her mind. She's already talking about hiring investigators to find dirt on you. Be very, very careful. Evelyn typed back. Thank you for the warning and for the evidence. Victoria. Those boys deserve better than the Caldwell circus. I'm rooting for you. It was strange having an ally in the woman who was supposed to be her replacement, but Victoria had seen the truth about the Caldwells, had experienced their manipulation firsthand. In some ways, they'd both been rescued from that family. Evelyn's phone buzzed again. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ms. Moore?" A woman's voice, professional. "This is Andrea Chen from the New York Times. I've been following your custody case, and I'd like to do a feature story. Your side of things, the full picture of what the Caldwell family has done." "I'm not giving interviews." "I understand. But Ms. Moore, right now the narrative is being controlled by the Caldwells and their PR team. People think you're vindictive, that you hid children out of spite. Don't you want the truth out there?" Evelyn hesitated. Margaret had warned her against press interviews, but Andrea was right. The public narrative was being shaped by people who wanted to destroy her. "If I did agree to talk, hypothetically, what kind of story are we talking about?" "In-depth. Investigative. I'd talk to people who worked at your company. I'd review the divorce records. I'd look into the Caldwell family's history of using their influence to crush people who don't serve their interests. This wouldn't be a puff piece. It would be real journalism." "I need to think about it." "Of course. But Miss Moore? I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can tell when a story is about more than just one family's custody dispute. This is about power, about what wealthy families can get away with, about women who dare to fight back. That's a story worth telling." After hanging up, Evelyn thought about it for a long time. Going public was risky, but staying silent while the Caldwells controlled the narrative was riskier. She called Margaret. "Absolutely not," Margaret said immediately. "The judge ordered you to keep things quiet and focus on parenting. Doing a tell-all interview would look terrible." "Even if it's the truth?" "Especially if it's the truth. The court doesn't care about public opinion. They care about the best interests of the children. And the best interests of the children are served by their mother staying out of the media circus." Evelyn knew she was right, but it felt wrong to stay silent while lies spread. The next day brought a new crisis. Evelyn's building management called. Reporters had been camping out in the lobby, harassing residents, trying to get photos of the boys. Security had removed them multiple times, but they kept coming back. "We may need to ask you to move," the building manager said apologetically. "Other residents are complaining. It's becoming a safety issue." Evelyn felt the walls closing in. They'd taken her company. Now they were taking her home. She called a realtor that afternoon and started looking at houses outside the city. Somewhere with gates, somewhere private, somewhere the boys could play without cameras tracking their every move. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was running away, just like she'd run 4 years ago. Except this time she had resources. Power. The ability to build fortress walls around her family. She found a property in Westchester, 40 minutes from the city, gated community, good schools. She made an offer that day and it was accepted by evening. They'd move in 2 weeks. When she told the boys, they had mixed reactions. Sebastian was excited about having a yard. Miles was worried about leaving his friends. Oliver asked if their daddy would still visit. "Of course," Evelyn assured him. "The visits won't change. We'll just have more space, more privacy." What she didn't say, "We'll have better security, we'll have distance from the circus, we'll have walls between us and the people trying to destroy us." The move happened quickly. Professional movers packed up the penthouse in 2 days. Evelyn supervised, making sure nothing was left behind, closing the door on that chapter of her life. The new house was beautiful, colonial style, 5 bedrooms, a backyard with mature trees and a swing set the previous owners had left behind. The boys ran through it shrieking with delight, claiming bedrooms, exploring closets, discovering the basement playroom. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn felt like she could breathe. That peace lasted exactly 3 days. The package arrived by courier, no return address, just her name on expensive cardstock. Inside was a thumb drive and a note in Gloria's distinctive handwriting. "You took my grandsons from me. I took something from you. Consider us even." With shaking hands, Evelyn plugged the thumb drive into her laptop. It contained video files, dozens of them. Security footage from her old building showing her coming home late at night while the boys were with babysitters. Footage of her at business dinners, looking relaxed and happy while presumably her children were home without her. Footage carefully edited to make her look like an absent, neglectful mother. There were also photos. Evelyn at a bar with colleagues after a product launch. Evelyn looking exhausted and disheveled picking the boys up from daycare. Evelyn arguing with a contractor outside her building. All taken out of context, all designed to paint a picture of instability. And there was a document. A psychological evaluation, completely fabricated but made to look official, claiming Evelyn showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder and parental alienation syndrome. Gloria had built a case, a false one, but meticulously constructed. The note continued on the back. The judge barred me from seeing my grandsons. So I did what any grandmother would do. I gathered evidence of your unfitness. This is just a sample. I have much more. Drop the custody case, or I release it all to the press and the court. Evelyn stared at the note, hands trembling with rage. This was Gloria's play. The acceleration Victoria had warned about. A blackmail package designed to force Evelyn into submission. She immediately called Margaret and forwarded everything. Margaret's response was swift and vicious. This is extortion. We are filing criminal charges. This crosses every legal and ethical line. Will it work? The charges? Probably not. Proving Gloria personally directed this would be difficult, but it shows the judge exactly who we're dealing with. This is evidence of the manipulation and control we've been talking about. What about the fabricated psychological evaluation? That's even better for us. Creating false medical documents is illegal. We can prove it's fake. You've never seen that doctor, never had that evaluation. It's fraud. They filed emergency motions that night. By morning, Gloria's lawyers were scrambling to distance the Caldwell family from the package, claiming someone else must have sent it, that Gloria would never do such a thing. But the judge saw through it. Another emergency hearing. This time, Gloria was in the hot seat. Mrs. Caldwell, Judge Hartwell's voice was ice. Did you send Ms. Moore a package containing fabricated medical documents and what amounts to blackmail? Gloria sat perfectly poised in the witness box. Absolutely not, Your Honor. I would never— The note was in your handwriting. We've had it analyzed. Then someone forged it. I'm being framed. By whom? Who would benefit from framing you? Gloria's mouth tightened. Miss Moore has shown she's willing to go to extreme lengths to keep my grandsons from their family. So you're suggesting Ms. Moore sent herself a blackmail package in your handwriting to make you look bad? Put that way, it sounded absurd. Gloria realized her mistake. I'm suggesting there are explanations other than the most obvious one. Judge Hartwell leaned forward. Mrs. Caldwell, I'm going to be very clear. This court will not tolerate intimidation, blackmail, or fabricated evidence. If I find any proof you were involved in sending that package, I will hold you in criminal contempt, and I will seriously consider terminating your parental rights to any relationship with your grandchildren permanently. The courtroom went silent. Do you understand? The judge pressed. Gloria's perfect composure finally cracked. Your Honor, those boys are my family. I have every right. You have the rights I grant you. And right now, you have zero rights because you've demonstrated you can't be trusted. One more incident like this and you'll be facing charges. Are we clear? Gloria's "Yes, Your Honor" came out strangled. When court adjourned, Evelyn watched Gloria leave, head high, spine straight, but something broken in her eyes. She'd been publicly humiliated, threatened with criminal charges, barred from her grandchildren. Everything Gloria Caldwell valued, control, power, respect, had been stripped away in a courtroom, and Evelyn felt no triumph, just exhaustion, because she knew this wasn't over. Gloria would regroup, find new strategies, new ways to attack. The war had escalated, and now there were no rules left. The escalation came faster than anyone expected. 2 days after the hearing, where Gloria had been threatened with criminal contempt, Evelyn received a certified letter from the Caldwell family attorneys. Inside was a settlement offer that took her breath away. $75 million. Full legal custody to Nathan, with Evelyn receiving supervised visitation every other weekend. The boys would be raised as Caldwells, educated at the finest schools, given every advantage the family name could provide. And Evelyn would sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement preventing her from ever speaking publicly about the family or the custody arrangement. The letter was clinical in its brutality. It laid out exactly how the Caldwells planned to win, through attrition, through financial warfare, through an endless legal battle that would drain Evelyn's resources and energy until she had nothing left to fight with. "They're betting you'll break," Margaret said when Evelyn showed her the offer. $75 million is enough money to set you up for life. They're counting on you being practical, taking the money and walking away. "I can't," Evelyn's voice was hollow. "I can't sell my children." "I know, but they don't understand that. To them, everything has a price, even love." The rejection was sent that afternoon. By evening, the Caldwells had filed 3 new motions, requesting immediate psychological evaluations of Evelyn, demanding full financial disclosure of her assets, and petitioning for emergency temporary custody based on new allegations of neglectful parenting. The allegations were vague but damaging. Anonymous reports to child services claiming the boys had been seen unsupervised in their new backyard. Neighbors allegedly complaining about late-night disturbances. A daycare worker supposedly expressing concern about Oliver's aggressive behavior. All lies, all completely fabricated. But each one required investigation, documentation, response. Each one was a drain on time and resources. Each one was designed to wear Evelyn down. The child services investigator arrived unannounced on a Thursday morning. Evelyn was working from her home office while the boys played in the living room. The doorbell rang and she opened it to find a tired-looking woman in her 40s with a clipboard and a badge. "Ms. Moore, I'm Sandra Martinez from Child Protective Services. We've received reports of potential neglect, and I need to conduct a welfare check on the children." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "Of course, come in." She led Sandra through the house, showing her the boys' bedrooms, clean, organized, full of toys and books. The kitchen with healthy food in the refrigerator. The playroom in the basement with safety gates and padded floors. Every room was evidence of a well-maintained, child-centered home. The boys were watching cartoons when Sandra asked to speak with them. Evelyn stepped back, heart hammering, while the investigator knelt down to their level. "Hi guys, I'm Sandra. I just want to ask you a few questions about your house and your mom. Is that okay?" 3 heads nodded solemnly. "Do you like living here?" "Yes," Sebastian said immediately. "We have a big yard and swings, and Mama says maybe we can get a dog." "That sounds nice. Does your mom take good care of you?" "She makes us breakfast every morning," Miles offered. "And she reads us stories before bed, 3 stories each." "Does she ever leave you alone?" All 3 boys looked confused. "We go to school," Oliver said. "But that's not alone. That's with Miss Rebecca and the other kids." "What about at night? Does your mom ever go out and leave you with babysitters?" "Sometimes Sarah comes," Sebastian said. "She's nice. She lets us stay up 15 extra minutes." Sandra made notes. "When your mom is home, does she spend time with you, or is she always working?" "She works in her office sometimes," Miles said carefully. "But she takes breaks to play with us, and she always has dinner with us, and she helps with homework." "Yeah, and she does funny voices when she reads," Oliver added. "She makes the dinosaurs sound scary." Sandra asked more questions, about discipline, about meals, about whether they felt safe. The boys answered honestly, painting a picture of normal, healthy family life, because that's what it was. After an hour, Sandra stood and gestured for Evelyn to follow her to the foyer. "Miss Moore, I'm going to be honest with you. This feels like harassment. Everything I've seen here suggests these children are well cared for and happy. The house is clean, the kids are healthy and articulate, and they clearly have a strong bond with you." Evelyn felt tears of relief prickling her eyes. "Thank you. But I still have to file a report, and I have to investigate the specific allegations. Can you tell me about the incident where neighbors allegedly saw the boys unsupervised in the backyard?" "There was no incident. The backyard is fenced and gated. I can see it from my office window. They play out there while I work, but I check on them every 15 minutes. I've never left them unsupervised." "And the late-night disturbances?" "We've been here 2 weeks. We're quiet. The boys are in bed by 8. I don't know what the complaint could possibly be about." Sandra made more notes. "I'll interview the neighbors. If these allegations are fabricated, my report will reflect that. But Ms. Moore, whoever filed these reports knows how to work the system. They used specific language that triggers mandatory investigations. This is calculated. I know who filed them. The father's family? Yes, they're trying to prove I'm unfit so they can take the boys. Sandra's expression hardened. I've seen this before. Wealthy families using CPS as a weapon in custody battles. It's disgusting, and it wastes resources we should be using for kids who actually need help. She handed Evelyn a card. If you get any more reports filed against you, call me directly. I'll flag your case so we can identify harassment patterns. After Sandra left, Evelyn sank onto the couch and pulled all three boys into her lap. They wiggled and protested, but she held on, breathing in their little kid smell of shampoo and graham crackers. Mama, you're squishing us, Oliver complained. I know, just let me squish you for a minute. That night, after the boys were asleep, Evelyn sat in her home office and made a decision. She'd been playing defense since the moment she walked into that wedding, reacting to the Caldwells' moves, responding to their attacks, trying to prove she was good enough. She was done playing defense. She called her CFO. James, I need detailed financial records for every stock transaction Richard Caldwell made in the company. Dates, amounts, which shell corporations he used, everything. Evelyn, if you're planning what I think you're planning, I'm taking my company back, and I'm exposing exactly how he manipulated the market to do it. That could trigger an SEC investigation. Good. Let them investigate. Richard's been playing fast and loose with securities law for decades. Time someone called him on it. She spent the next 3 days building a case. Richard had purchased company stock through 6 different shell corporations to hide the total amount of his holdings. He'd coordinated the timing to depress the stock price before buying, then spread rumors about the company's instability to justify forcing Evelyn out. It was textbook market manipulation. Evelyn compiled everything into a comprehensive report and sent it to the SEC, the State Attorney General, and the Financial Crimes Division of the FBI. Then she sent copies to 3 different financial journalists who specialized in exposing corporate fraud. The story broke 48 hours later. Caldwell Patriarch under investigation for stock manipulation. SEC probes. Alleged scheme to force out tech. CEO. Richard Caldwell's shell companies hide massive stock purchases. The financial community exploded. Richard Caldwell had built his reputation on ethical business practices and conservative investments. Finding out he'd engaged in market manipulation to win a personal vendetta destroyed that reputation overnight. His firm's stock dropped 18% in a single day. 3 major clients pulled their accounts. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss his future with the company. Gloria called Evelyn directly, violating the court order against contact. Evelyn let it go to voicemail and saved the recording. You've destroyed him, Gloria's voice hissed through the phone. Richard has built that company for 40 years, and you've ruined it in 48 hours. I hope you're satisfied. I hope your vindictive need for revenge was worth destroying a man's legacy. Evelyn saved the voicemail and sent it to Margaret with a note. More evidence of harassment. But she felt no satisfaction, just a grim determination to protect what was hers. The Caldwells responded with their own nuclear option. They leaked the story of the triplets to a tabloid, including photos of the boys that they'd somehow obtained. The article was sensational and ugly, painting Evelyn as a woman who'd trapped a wealthy man with a pregnancy, then demanded millions in child support. It included quotes from anonymous sources close to the family, claiming Evelyn had been sleeping with multiple men during her marriage, and there was no way to be certain Nathan was actually the father. That the boys had been conceived after the divorce through artificial insemination using stolen sperm. That Evelyn had a history of mental instability and substance abuse. Every word was a lie. Every word was also now in print, spreading across social media, being repeated as fact. The boys' preschool called that afternoon. Ms. Moore, I'm so sorry, but we've had reporters trying to photograph the children during outdoor playtime. Parents are complaining. We think it might be best if the boys take a few weeks off until things calm down. Translation. Please remove your scandal from our school. Evelyn pulled the boys out that day and hired a private tutor. Another piece of normal life ripped away because the Caldwells couldn't accept losing. Nathan called for the first time since the custody battle began. Evelyn almost didn't answer, but something in his persistence made her pick up. Evelyn, please. We need to talk. His voice sounded wrecked. This has gone too far. My father's being investigated. My mother won't stop making things worse, and the boys are caught in the middle. The boys have been caught in the middle since you let your family file for custody instead of working something out privately. I know I handled this badly, but my family, they're not going to stop. You know that, right? They'll keep fighting until there's nothing left of either of us. Then they'll be fighting alone because I'm not backing down. Even if it destroys us both. Even if the boys grow up reading tabloid stories about their parents. Evelyn felt something crack in her chest. What are you suggesting? Meet with me. In person. Without lawyers. Let's try to figure out an arrangement that works for both of us. For them. Your mother won't allow it. I'm 42 years old. I'm tired of asking my mother's permission. Nathan's voice was bitter. Victoria was right. I've been letting her control my life, my decisions, my relationships. It ends now. What happened with Victoria? She's in D.C. working on her father's campaign. We talk sometimes. She told me I need to stop being a coward and start being a father. She's not wrong. Evelyn considered. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap. But Nathan sounded genuinely broken, and she was tired of fighting. Fine, tomorrow afternoon, the coffee shop on Maple Street. 2:00. Come alone, or I walk. I'll be there, Evelyn told Margaret, who immediately protested. This is a terrible idea. He could be recording you, setting you up, getting you to say something he can use in court. Or he could actually want to work something out. I have to try, Margaret, for the boys. The coffee shop was quiet on a Wednesday afternoon. Evelyn arrived early, chose a table with good sightlines, and waited. When Nathan walked in, she barely recognized him. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes. His expensive clothes hung loose on his frame, and his hair needed cutting. He looked like a man who'd been through a war and lost. He sat down across from her without ordering anything. Thank you for coming. You have 15 minutes. My father's probably going to be indicted. The SEC found evidence of fraud going back years. He used the custody case as cover, but they uncovered a pattern of manipulation. He might go to prison. Evelyn said nothing. My mother has been placed on psychiatric hold. After the judge threatened her with contempt, she had some kind of breakdown. Started talking about how she'd lost everything, how you'd taken her grandsons, how the family name was being destroyed. Her doctor says she's having a severe stress reaction. I'm sorry, Evelyn said, and meant it. She'd wanted consequences for Gloria's actions, not a mental health crisis. Victoria sent me the emails, the ones where my mother was coaching my testimony, planning strategy, treating the whole custody case like a chess game. Nathan's hands shook slightly. I thought I was making my own decisions, thought I was fighting for my kids, but I was just following her script. So what? You want absolution? You want me to say it's okay that you tried to take my children because mommy made you do it? No, I want to apologize, and I want to work out an arrangement that doesn't require armies of lawyers and investigations and leaked stories. He met her eyes. I want to actually be a father, instead of a weapon my family uses against you. How do I know this isn't just another strategy? How do I trust anything you say? Nathan pulled out his phone and slid it across the table. I've been documenting every conversation with my parents for the past 2 weeks. Every time they tried to coach me, manipulate me, tell me what to say to the lawyers, it's all recorded. You can have it. Use it in court. Whatever you need. Evelyn stared at the phone. Why? Because Victoria was right. I've been a coward. I let my family destroy our marriage. I let them try to destroy you, and I almost let them destroy any chance I have at a real relationship with my sons. I'm done. What does that mean practically? It means I'm cutting them off, financially, emotionally, all of it. I'm moving out of the Greenwich house into an apartment in the city. I'm getting a real job instead of living off trust funds, and I'm telling my lawyers to work out whatever custody arrangement you're comfortable with. Just like that? You're suddenly willing to give up everything? I'm willing to fight for what actually matters. And what matters is those 3 boys. Not winning a custody case. Not preserving the family image. Not proving my parents right about anything. Just being a decent father to my sons. Evelyn searched his face for deception. All she saw was exhaustion and something that looked like genuine regret. I need primary custody, she said carefully. The boys have been through enough upheaval. They need stability. Okay. I need you to complete parenting classes and therapy. Not because a judge ordered it, but because you actually want to learn how to parent. Okay? I need your parents to have zero unsupervised contact with the boys. Maybe supervised visits eventually if Gloria gets treatment and proves she's stable, but not until I'm absolutely certain they won't use the boys as pawns. Nathan flinched but nodded. That's fair. And I need you to stop the financial attacks on my company. Tell your father to sell his shares. Call off whatever other schemes they have planned. I don't control what my father does. Then testify against him in the SEC investigation. Prove you're actually on the right side of this. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Testifying against his own father would permanently sever ties with his family, would make him a pariah in their social circle, would cost him inheritance, connections, everything the Caldwell name represented. Okay, he said finally. I'll cooperate with the investigation. Evelyn sat back, studying him. This could still be an elaborate trap, but something in Nathan's defeated posture suggested he was telling the truth, that he'd finally hit rock bottom and was ready to climb back up. I want this in writing, a formal custody agreement. You get the boys 1 weekend a month to start, increasing to every other weekend after 6 months if things go well. Wednesday dinners, holiday sharing arrangements, child support appropriate to your income, not your trust fund. Can we make it more than once a month? I've missed so much already. We'll see. You have to build trust first. With me and with them. They barely know you, Nathan. You can't force a relationship into existence. You have to earn it. I will. I'll do whatever it takes. They talked for another hour, hammering out details. When Evelyn finally left, she had a voice memo on her phone with Nathan agreeing to all her terms. It wasn't legally binding, but it was a start. Margaret was skeptical when Evelyn played her the recording. He could still be manipulating you. This could all be designed to get you to lower your guard. Or he could actually be trying to do the right thing for once in his life. People don't change that fast, Evelyn. No, but they do hit rock bottom, and sometimes that's what it takes. The formal custody agreement was drafted 3 days later. Nathan signed without making a single revision. His lawyers looked confused. This was nothing like what the Caldwells had been pushing for. But Nathan held firm. The agreement gave Evelyn primary physical custody, with Nathan receiving supervised visitation, increasing to unsupervised over 6 months. Gloria and Richard were explicitly barred from contact with the children pending completion of family therapy. Nathan agreed to complete parenting classes and individual therapy. He agreed to child support based on his actual income, not family wealth. And he agreed to cooperate with the SEC investigation into his father's business practices. In exchange, Evelyn agreed to facilitate a relationship between Nathan and the boys, to speak positively about their father, to give him real chances to be present in their lives. It was everything Evelyn had fought for, and it felt surreal to actually have it. Judge Hartwell reviewed the agreement at a hearing 2 weeks later. She questioned Nathan extensively, making sure he understood what he was agreeing to and that he was doing so without coercion. Mr. Caldwell, this agreement significantly limits your parenting time compared to what you initially requested. Are you certain this is what you want? Yes, Your Honor, I want what's best for my sons. And right now, that's stability with their mother, while I learn how to be a proper father. And you understand you're agreeing to supervised visitation initially? Yes, I understand I need to build trust, with the boys and with Ms. Moore. What about your parents' involvement? Nathan's jaw tightened. My parents have demonstrated they can't put the children's interests ahead of family politics. Until they get help and prove they've changed, they shouldn't have access to the boys. Gloria, watching from the gallery, stood up. You can't do this. Those are my grandsons. Judge Hartwell's gavel cracked down. Mrs. Caldwell, sit down or I'll have you removed. This is Mr. Caldwell's decision to make. He's being manipulated. She's turned him against his own family. I said sit down. Security, if Mrs. Caldwell disrupts these proceedings again, escort her out. Gloria sat, trembling with rage. But she was powerless. Her golden son had broken ranks, had chosen his children over her influence, and there was nothing she could do about it. Judge Hartwell approved the agreement. Primary custody to Evelyn. Supervised visitation for Nathan with the possibility of expansion. No contact for Gloria or Richard pending therapy and court review. It was over. The war that had consumed months of Evelyn's life, that had cost her company and nearly broken her spirit, was finally over. Outside the courthouse, Nathan approached Evelyn one more time. "Thank you for giving me a chance. Don't thank me. Thank the boys by actually showing up, by being consistent, by putting in the work." "I will. I promise." "Your promises don't mean much to me yet, Nathan. Prove it with actions." He nodded and walked away, shoulders slumped. Evelyn watched him go, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. She'd won, but it didn't feel like victory, just exhaustion. The SEC investigation into Richard Caldwell moved forward. Nathan cooperated fully, providing documentation of his father's business practices. Within 2 months, Richard was indicted on 6 counts of securities fraud and market manipulation. The trial was scheduled for the following year. Richard hired the best criminal defense attorneys money could buy, but the evidence was overwhelming. Nathan's testimony would likely be devastating to his father's case. Gloria remained in psychiatric care, unable to accept that she'd lost control of her family. Her doctors reported that she obsessed over the boys, about getting them back, about making Evelyn pay for taking them away. She wasn't getting better. If anything, she was getting worse. Richard tried to visit Evelyn one last time before his trial. She refused to see him. He left a letter with her attorney. In it, he acknowledged that he'd gone too far, that his attempts to control the situation had destroyed his company, his reputation, and his family, that he understood why she couldn't trust them with the boys. He didn't ask for forgiveness, just understanding. Evelyn read the letter once and filed it away. Understanding didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean giving him access to her children. It just meant acknowledging that people made choices and those choices had consequences. Meanwhile, Evelyn focused on rebuilding. The board of her company, embarrassed by their role in forcing her out, offered her full reinstatement. She declined. Instead, she negotiated a buyout that left her with a substantial portion of the company's value while handing daily operations to someone else. She didn't need the stress of running a company while raising 3 boys. She needed time, space, the ability to focus on what actually mattered. With the settlement money and her existing wealth, Evelyn had more financial security than she'd ever imagined. She could raise her sons without worrying about money, could give them everything they needed without compromising her values. She used some of the money to establish a foundation helping single mothers navigate custody disputes with wealthy ex-partners. She hired Margaret to run the legal division. Within 6 months, they were helping dozens of women who'd been in situations similar to Evelyn's. It felt good to turn her pain into purpose. Nathan's supervised visitations with the boys gradually became easier. At first, the boys were cautious around him, this man who was biologically their father but essentially a stranger. But Nathan was patient. He showed up every time without fail, brought activities they enjoyed, learned their interests, their fears, their favorite foods. By month 3, the boys were asking when they'd see their daddy again. By month 6, they were excited about visits. The court approved unsupervised visitation, and Nathan took them to parks, museums, the aquarium. He sent Evelyn photos of them feeding penguins, riding carousel horses, building sandcastles. He was trying, actually trying. Evelyn started allowing longer visits, full weekends, holiday sharing. Nathan set up their bedrooms in his modest apartment, nothing like the Greenwich mansion, but comfortable and clearly chosen with the boys in mind. And slowly, carefully, something resembling co-parenting emerged. It wasn't perfect. There were disagreements about discipline, about screen time, about whether the boys were old enough for certain activities. But they talked through them, compromised, put the boys first. One evening, 6 months after the custody agreement was finalized, Nathan called Evelyn after dropping the boys off. "I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the chance to be their father. I know I didn't earn it. You're earning it now. That's what matters. They asked about my parents today, about why they never see their grandparents." Evelyn's stomach tightened. "What did you tell them?" "The truth, age-appropriate version. That Grandma Gloria and Grandpa Richard made some mistakes and needed time to work on being better people. That maybe someday they could visit, but only when everyone was ready." "How did they take it?" Sebastian said that's okay because they have you and that's enough. Miles said he hopes they get better soon because everyone deserves a second chance. And Oliver asked if that meant they could get ice cream. Evelyn laughed despite herself. That sounds about right. Evelyn? Nathan's voice was hesitant. Do you think there's a chance that eventually my parents could have supervised visits? My mother's been in therapy. She's making progress. I don't know, Nathan. I need to be absolutely certain she won't use the boys as pawns, that she won't try to undermine me or manipulate them, that she's actually changed. I understand. She's my mother. And despite everything, I want my kids to know their grandparents, the good parts of them, anyway. We'll see. But not yet. Maybe not for a long time. They talked a while longer about ordinary things. Sebastian's new dinosaur obsession, Miles's drawings that were getting surprisingly good, Oliver's endless questions about how everything worked, parent talk. Normal, boring, beautiful parent talk. When Evelyn hung up, she felt something unfamiliar. Not quite trust, not yet, but possibility. The possibility that maybe, despite everything, they could give the boys something resembling a healthy family structure. It wouldn't look like a traditional family. It would be complicated and messy and require constant work. But it would be real, built on honesty instead of appearances, on cooperation instead of control. And for the first time since that wedding invitation arrived so many months ago, Evelyn felt like she could finally breathe. The boys were safe, they were loved. They were growing up knowing their worth wasn't conditional on meeting impossible standards or maintaining perfect appearances. They were being raised by parents who were learning to put their needs first, who communicated instead of fought, who showed them that mistakes could be acknowledged and relationships could be repaired. It wasn't the revenge Evelyn had imagined when she walked into that wedding with her 3 sons. It wasn't the dramatic vindication of watching the Caldwells completely destroyed, but it was something better. It was peace, hard-won, fragile, but real. The Caldwell empire had crumbled, Richard facing prison time, Gloria in long-term psychiatric care, the family name tarnished by scandal. But Nathan had escaped, had chosen his children over legacy, had chosen growth over comfort, and 3 little boys would grow up free. 18 months after the custody agreement was finalized, Evelyn received an unexpected letter. The return address was a psychiatric facility in upstate New York where Gloria had been receiving treatment. The handwriting on the envelope was shaky, but unmistakably Gloria's. Evelyn stared at it for a long time before opening it. The boys were at school, the house was quiet, and she had the space to process whatever was inside without little eyes watching her reactions. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten on simple lined paper. No expensive stationery, no embossed family crest. Just words. Dear Evelyn, I've started this letter 47 times. My therapist says I need to write it without planning what I want you to think of me, without calculating how to manipulate your response. So I'm trying to just write the truth, however ugly it is. I destroyed your life because you threatened mine. Not your existence. You were never a threat to me physically or materially, but you threatened the story I'd built about who the Caldwells were, about who I was. I grew up poor. Not struggling middle class like you, but actually poor. My father was an alcoholic who spent every dollar on liquor. My mother cleaned houses for people who treated her like she was invisible. I wore secondhand clothes and ate free lunch at school and knew that I was less than everyone around me. When I married Richard, I thought I'd escaped. I had money, status, the right last name. I could rewrite my history, become someone who'd always belonged in rooms with crystal chandeliers and champagne. But I was always terrified someone would see through it, would recognize me as the poor girl pretending to be something she wasn't. And then Nathan brought you home. Smart, capable, genuine, everything I'd tried so hard to become. But you were comfortable in your own skin in a way I never was. You didn't need the Caldwell name to know your worth. And that terrified me because it exposed that I did. So I destroyed you. Made you feel as small as I'd always felt inside. Convinced myself it was about protecting the family, maintaining standards, ensuring Nathan married appropriately. But really, I was just trying to prove I deserved to be a Caldwell more than you did. I treated my son the same way. Controlled him, manipulated him, made his love conditional on meeting my expectations. I did to him what my parents did to me. And when he finally broke free, when he chose his children over my approval, I broke completely. I've been in treatment for 14 months. Real treatment, not the spa-disguised therapy wealthy people usually get. Medication for the anxiety disorder I'd been self-medicating with control for 40 years. Therapy to unpack why I needed to manipulate everyone around me. Group sessions with other women who used power to hide pain. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to acknowledge the harm I caused without expecting anything in return. So here it is. I harmed you. Deliberately, cruelly, systematically. I tried to take your children. I tried to destroy your career. I tried to break you the way I'd been broken. And I failed. Because you're stronger than I ever was. You survived, rebuilt, and raised 3 beautiful boys who are everything the Caldwell name should represent, but rarely does. I don't expect you to read this to them. I don't expect them to ever want to know me. But if someday they ask about their grandmother, please tell them I'm sorry, and I'm trying to be better. Gloria Evelyn read the letter 3 times, emotions churning. Part of her wanted to dismiss it as another manipulation, but the rawness of it, the lack of excuses or justifications, felt different from anything Gloria had written before. She showed it to Nathan at their next custody exchange. He read it silently, expression unreadable. "She sent me one too," he said finally, "about how she tried to make me into a reflection of her fears instead of letting me be my own person. How she spent 40 years confusing control with love. Do you believe she's actually changing?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, watching the boys play in Evelyn's backyard. "I think she's trying, whether she succeeds or not." He shrugged. "I don't know, but she's trying, which is more than she did before." "The boys asked about her last week," Evelyn admitted. "Sebastian wanted to know if they had a grandmother. I told them yes, but she was sick and needed time to get better. He asked if we could send her a get well card." "Did you?" "We made one. Drew pictures, wrote their names. I sent it, but I didn't include our address, just in case." Nathan smiled sadly. "You're more generous than she deserves." "I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for them." So they grow up knowing they tried to build bridges, even when bridges seemed impossible. 3 months later, Gloria's psychiatrist contacted Evelyn through Margaret. Gloria had completed her intensive therapy program and was transitioning to outpatient care. As part of her treatment plan, she'd asked if supervised visitation with the boys might be possible. Not at her request, but as a therapeutic goal if and when Evelyn deemed it appropriate. The psychiatrist included a detailed report. Gloria had been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and narcissistic personality traits rooted in childhood trauma. She'd made significant progress in treatment, learning to recognize manipulative patterns, building genuine relationships with other patients, working through the fear and shame that had driven her behavior for decades. But the report also cautioned that Gloria would likely struggle with these patterns for the rest of her life. That stress could trigger relapses. That she needed ongoing monitoring and support. Evelyn discussed it with Nathan, with Margaret, with the boys' child psychologist. Everyone agreed that if visitation happened, it needed to be heavily supervised, brief, and designed primarily to assess whether Gloria could interact with the boys in a healthy way. "I'm not ready to trust her," Evelyn told Nathan, "but I'm willing to give her a chance to prove she's changed. One chance. If she manipulates them, undermines me, or shows any sign of the old behavior, it's over." "That's fair," Nathan said. "More than fair, actually." The first visit was arranged at a family therapy center with both a supervisor and the boys' psychologist present. Evelyn and Nathan would both attend, ready to intervene if necessary. The boys had been prepared, told they were meeting their grandmother who'd been sick but was feeling better now. Gloria arrived early, Evelyn noticed through the waiting room window. She looked different, older, smaller somehow. Her clothes were simple, her hair natural instead of professionally colored. She carried herself with less certainty, more hesitation. When the boys were brought in, Gloria's face crumpled. She pressed her hand to her mouth, eyes filling with tears. "Hi," she said softly, kneeling down to their level. "I'm your grandmother Gloria. You can call me whatever you're comfortable with." Sebastian, the bravest, stepped forward. "We made you a card when you were sick. Did you get it?" "I did. I hung it on my wall and I look at it every morning. The dinosaur you drew was my favorite. That's a T-Rex. He's the king of dinosaurs. I can tell. You're very talented. Gloria's voice was shaking. Thank you for thinking of me. Miles hung back, watching carefully. Oliver pressed against Nathan's leg, uncertain. The psychologist gently encouraged interaction. Why don't you show your grandmother some of the toys we have here? Sebastian took Gloria's hand and led her to the play area. She followed, moving carefully like someone afraid of breaking something precious. For the next hour, she played with the boys, asked about school, their favorite foods, what they wanted to be when they grew up. She didn't correct Sebastian's pronunciation or suggest Miles's drawing technique needed improvement or overwhelm Oliver with questions when he was clearly overstimulated. She just listened, engaged, let them be themselves without trying to mold them into something else. When the visit ended, Gloria thanked Evelyn quietly. I know this must have been difficult to allow. I appreciate you giving me this chance. This isn't for you, Evelyn said, but her voice was softer than she intended. It's for them. I know, but still, thank you. Over the next 6 months, visits continued monthly. Always supervised, always structured, but gradually becoming easier. The boys started asking when they'd see Grandma Gloria again. Started saving drawings to show her. Started including her in their mental map of family. And Gloria showed up consistently, followed all the rules, attended her therapy appointments, worked on building a relationship based on genuine care rather than control. Richard's trial concluded during this period. He was found guilty on 4 of the 6 fraud charges and sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. The Caldwell financial empire collapsed completely. The firm dissolved, assets seized to pay fines and restitution, the family name synonymous with corruption instead of prestige. Nathan had testified against his father, providing the documentation that sealed the conviction. Richard hadn't spoken to him since. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. But Nathan was building a new life separate from his family legacy. He'd gone back to school for a teaching certificate, discovering he had a talent for explaining complex concepts to children. He took a job at a public school teaching 5th grade math, making a fraction of what he'd earned in finance but coming home fulfilled instead of empty. The boys were proud of their dad, the teacher. They told their friends, brought him to career day, beamed when he helped with their homework. On the 2-year anniversary of the custody agreement, Evelyn's foundation held its first major fundraising gala. Over 300 people attended, raising nearly $2 million to help mothers navigate custody battles with wealthy ex-partners. Margaret gave a speech about the cases they'd won. Evelyn spoke about turning pain into purpose. And Nathan attended, bringing the boys in tiny suits that made them look unbearably grown up. They were 6 now, losing teeth, reading chapter books, full of opinions and questions and energy. Victoria came too, bringing her new partner, a civil rights attorney she'd met while working on her father's campaign. The senator had won his election, and Victoria had stepped back from politics to focus on advocacy work. You did it, Victoria said, pulling Evelyn into a hug. You survived them and built something beautiful. We all did, Evelyn replied, looking around at the crowd. Everyone here survived something. That's the point. The gala was winding down when Evelyn noticed Nathan talking to Gloria in a quiet corner. She'd been invited at Nathan's request, a test to see if she could attend a family event without creating drama. So far, she'd been quietly supportive, helping wrangle the boys when they got restless, staying in the background. Evelyn drifted closer, curious about their conversation. I'm proud of you, Gloria was saying. The teaching, the way you are with the boys. You're a better parent than I ever was. Nathan's jaw tightened. I'm trying to be. It's harder than I thought. Parenting is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I just wish I'd understood that meant being flexible instead of controlling. Listening instead of lecturing. Gloria's voice was heavy with regret. I can't undo the past. Can't give you the childhood you deserved or fix what I broke in you. But I can tell you that I see you now, really see you, and you're remarkable. It was the most emotionally honest Evelyn had ever heard Gloria be. Nathan seemed to feel the same way. His expression softened slightly. Thanks, Mom. That means something. They stood in awkward silence for a moment, then Gloria excused herself to check on the boys. Evelyn approached Nathan. "You okay?" "Yeah, just processing. She's different, really different, but there's still so much history, you know?" "I know, healing isn't linear. She might be making progress, and you can still have complicated feelings about it." "When did you become so wise about forgiveness?" Evelyn laughed. "I'm not forgiving anyone. I'm just choosing not to let anger run my life anymore. There's a difference." As the evening ended and guests filtered out, Evelyn stood in the emptying ballroom with Margaret and Victoria, watching Nathan help the boys into their coats. "2 years ago, I was being forced out of my company and fighting for my children," Evelyn said quietly. "Now I run a foundation, have a healthy co-parenting relationship, and those boys are thriving. It's surreal." "You earned this," Margaret said firmly. "Every bit of it." "We all earned it. Victoria, you gave me the evidence I needed when you had no reason to help me. Margaret, you fought for me when everyone else said I couldn't win. Nathan eventually chose his kids over his family. Even Gloria is trying to change. It took all of us." Victoria smiled. "So what's next? Now that you've won?" Evelyn watched Sebastian chase Miles around the ballroom while Oliver explained something very seriously to Nathan, who was listening with complete attention. "I don't know. Maybe nothing dramatic. Maybe just being present for my kids, helping other mothers fight their battles, building relationships instead of walls. That feels like enough." 3 years after the custody agreement was finalized, the court reviewed the arrangement for potential modifications. Nathan petitioned for equal parenting time. Evelyn didn't oppose. The boys were 8 now, thriving in school, well-adjusted despite their complicated family history. They split time between Evelyn's house and Nathan's apartment comfortably, settling into routines in both places. The judge interviewed them privately, asking about their preferences and feelings. All 3 boys said they loved both parents, that they felt safe and happy in both homes, that they wished everyone could live together but understood that wasn't possible. The court granted equal parenting time. 50-50 custody. Nathan's consistent presence and growth as a parent had earned him what he'd initially tried to take by force. Gloria was granted limited supervised visitation, 4 times per year on major holidays, always with Nathan present. She'd proven she could interact with the boys healthily, but Evelyn maintained firm boundaries. Gloria would never have unsupervised access, would never be in a position to manipulate or control. Richard was released from prison after serving 18 months of his 3-year sentence. He reached out to Nathan once, requesting a meeting. Nathan declined. Some relationships couldn't be repaired. Richard moved to Florida, started a small consulting business under a different name, and faded into obscurity. The man who'd once controlled millions and influenced politics was now just another retiree trying to rebuild a destroyed reputation. On the boys' 9th birthday, Evelyn threw a party at her house. Nathan helped set up decorations. Gloria came for an hour, bringing thoughtful gifts, books about dinosaurs for Sebastian, an art set for Miles, a science kit for Oliver. She stayed in the background, didn't try to be the center of attention, and left before the party ended. After the guests departed and the boys were in sugar comas watching a movie, Nathan helped Evelyn clean up. "Do you ever think about how different this could have been?" he asked, collecting paper plates. "If I'd handled things differently from the start?" "Every day. But we can't change the past. We can only build better futures." "Do you think they'll forgive us when they're older and understand what happened?" Evelyn paused, considering. "I think they'll understand that people are complicated, that their parents made mistakes but tried to fix them. That family doesn't have to be perfect to be good." "I hope you're right." "Me too." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of ease that came from years of practice at being partners in the complicated business of raising children. "Evelyn?" Nathan's voice was hesitant. "I never properly apologized. For the wedding. For everything leading up to it. I let my family use that invitation as a weapon, and I didn't stop them. I'm sorry." She looked at him. This man who'd hurt her so deeply, but who'd also grown into someone worthy of their son's respect. "I know. And I'm sorry for weaponizing the boys by bringing them to your wedding. I was angry, and I wanted to hurt you the way you'd hurt me. We were both wrong. But we're better now. We're trying to be better. That counts for something." Years passed. The boys grew into teenagers, tall, bright, still bearing those unmistakable Caldwell amber eyes, but with Evelyn's determination and compassion. Sebastian pursued paleontology just as he'd dreamed. Miles became an artist whose work was featured in student exhibitions. Oliver studied engineering with the same intense curiosity he'd had as a toddler. They knew their family history. Evelyn and Nathan had told them age-appropriate versions as they grew, about the difficult divorce, the custody battle, the family dysfunction. They didn't hide the ugliness, but they didn't dwell on it either. The boys formed their own relationships with Gloria, now in her 70s and mellowed by time and treatment. They visited her occasionally, listened to stories about the family history, but maintained healthy boundaries. They loved her cautiously, aware of her limitations. They had no relationship with Richard, who'd become a stranger long before they could remember meeting him. Nathan didn't push for one, and the boys didn't ask. When Sebastian turned 18 and applied to college, he wrote his admissions essay about growing up between two households and learning that family was about effort, not just biology. That real love was consistent, not conditional. That the best gift his parents gave him was choosing to grow instead of staying broken. Evelyn cried reading it. Nathan did too. The essay got Sebastian into his first-choice school. At his graduation party, surrounded by friends and family, both the blood kind and the chosen kind, Evelyn stood with Nathan and watched their son celebrate. "We did okay," Nathan said quietly. "Despite everything, we did okay. We did better than okay. Look at them." All three boys were healthy, confident, kind. They had strong relationships with both parents. They understood their worth wasn't tied to money or status. They'd been raised to value authenticity over appearances. They were everything the Caldwell name had once tried to force, but they'd become it naturally, through love instead of control. Gloria approached, moving slowly with a cane now. "They're beautiful boys. You should be proud." "We are," Evelyn said, and included Gloria in the "we" without thinking about it. Gloria's eyes glistened. "Thank you for giving me the chance to know them. I didn't deserve it." "Maybe not, but they deserved the chance to know you, the real you, not the person you were." That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Evelyn sat in her backyard watching the stars. She thought about the invitation that had arrived 6 years ago, the wedding that had imploded, the war that had followed. She thought about standing in that ballroom with 3 small boys, watching Nathan's perfect future collapse, about the custody battles and the investigations, and the moment she'd thought she might lose everything. She thought about Victoria's unexpected friendship, Margaret's fierce loyalty, Nathan's eventual redemption, Gloria's painful transformation. And she thought about her 3 sons, now almost grown, who'd survived a family war and emerged stronger for it. Evelyn hadn't destroyed the Caldwells by crushing them. She'd done something far more powerful. She'd refused to become them. She'd chosen love over revenge, growth over bitterness, authenticity over appearances. The Caldwell empire had fallen, but her sons had risen. And in the end, that was the victory that mattered. Not the money or the custody agreement or the public vindication, just 3 boys who knew they were loved unconditionally, who understood that mistakes could be acknowledged and relationships could be repaired, who'd been taught that strength came from vulnerability, not control. Gloria had ended her letter saying the boys were everything the Caldwell name should represent, but rarely did. She'd been right. They were honest, compassionate, genuine, all the things that family had valued in theory, but punished in practice. Evelyn's phone buzzed, a text from Nathan with a photo, Sebastian, Miles, and Oliver together at the party, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. Below it, "Thank you for fighting for them, for us, for giving me the chance to be their father." She typed back, "Thank you for becoming someone worth fighting alongside." The stars wheeled overhead, constant and distant. Evelyn's life had been torn apart and rebuilt stronger. She'd been humiliated, attacked, nearly broken, but she'd survived, thrived, built something real from the ashes of the Caldwell legacy. The invitation had been meant to destroy her. Instead, it had freed her. She went inside to check on the boys one last time before bed, a habit from when they were small that she'd never quite broken. They were in their rooms, probably on their phones or reading or doing whatever teenagers did. But they were home. They were safe. They were hers. And she was theirs. That was the only victory that had ever mattered. Not destroying the family that had tried to destroy her. Not proving her worth to people whose opinions had never mattered. Not even building an empire or winning custody battles. Just loving her sons and teaching them to love themselves. Everything else was just noise. The woman who'd arrived at that wedding with 3 small boys and a heart full of anger was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, more at peace. The Caldwell name would fade from public memory. Richard's crimes would become footnotes. Gloria's cruelty would be forgotten by everyone except those who'd experienced it. But Sebastian, Miles, and Oliver would carry forward the best parts of both families. Nathan's intelligence, Evelyn's strength, and the hard-won wisdom that came from watching their parents choose growth over pride. They would be better than the generations before them, and that was revenge enough. Evelyn turned off the lights and climbed the stairs to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, college applications, teenage drama, the endless work of parenting. But tonight, she had peace. The war was over, and love had won.